Up high in the Styrian Mountains, the Porsche Esports Canada rolling calendar continues. Welcome along to round 4 in this wonderful championship. The GT4's up first in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. Delighted you can join us here on Porsche's Twitch. Arjuna Kankipati, not joined alongside by Lewis McLeod. He's decided, unfortunately, that it's too early in the morning in Germany where he's on a trip. Instead, we welcome Ewan O'Leary into the commentary booth and Ewan into what has been a remarkable season so far. We're looking forward to seeing the action continue here at the Red Bull Ring.
We certainly are a great circuit for racing. Not many corners around here, of course, but so many of those are really deep braking zones with lots of passing opportunities. And we've already seen great races in terms of a pack staying really close together and a really engaging fight for the race win in both classes, especially this one, actually. So expecting more of the same and hoping for more of the same at the Red Bull Ring.
Hoping not for any moving chicanes as well on the main straight. Let's take a look at that schedule, though, because, boy, it's been a roller coaster of a first half of the season, and already 4 rounds will be complete as we work our way out of the Red Bull Ring and over into the back half of the season. Of course, it's 2 weeks on, a week off schedule that will continue, and of course, Circuit of the Americas Spa-Francorchamps lying ahead of us before Road Atlanta and Circuit Gilles Villeneuve will finish things off. This middle stretch, though, of the season, in many ways, Ewan, is about the drafts, right? These bigger, more open tracks, as opposed to the likes of Road Atlanta, and especially when we head to the streets of Montreal and a proper street circuit at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, where tight confines are going to really dictate the racing.
Yeah, that's going to be probably the most different race from any of the others, you would argue, the only street circuit that we're going to here this season. But yeah, these last few rounds have been a little bit more wide open, a little bit more drafty, if you like, but I think that's been a feature of the first half of the season, especially for these GT4s. Remember, they're not as quick, so they spend longer on the straights. That means longer in the slipstream, and that means closer racing at the front.
Always love close racing as well. Let's talk about, by the way, a little bit of the details around everything that's going on in the world of Porsche Esports Canada. We introduced this Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge back in 2020 with the GT4s. Now, last year, unfortunately, we dropped them. It was all about the 992s. We decided we wanted to bring both of them back, and so we said, you know what better thing to do than new for 2024, introduce the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. Now, in both championships, 23 Porsche Centres are racing head-to-head, and qualified drivers were then drafted to earn points across of both of those championships. And let's not forget, Ewan, we're talking about championships. Race control always comes into play.
Yeah, they certainly do, and we'll be seeing a bit of that over the course of today, although hopefully as little as possible. But yeah, it's a great idea, actually, something that I've not necessarily seen done so much before in terms of making Porsche Centres go up against one another. Indeed, different areas of the world go up against one another. It doesn't happen very often, and so really looking forward to seeing how that pans out, because last season it was all very close between those at the front.
Very, very close at the top. Dialing in specifically to this Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, it's open to Canadian residents 15 years of older. It's all about building a ladder and allowing younger drivers the opportunities to then step up into the main Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. Now, 25-minute race is relatively short. You've got to get your elbows out in the hunt for the championship prize, but also for, of course, the Smooth Operator Award, the driver that over the course of the season makes up the most positions, and the Lego Play Well Award, awarded in every single race for the largest mover. And visit lego.com to check out the full assortment of Porsche sets, including the Lego Speed Champions Porsche 963 and Lego Icons Porsche 911. And each of those winners, of course, in each of the races of the Play Well Award will get a Lego Speed Champions Porsche 963. If you're new to the championship, points are handed out in qualifying, which is moments away from getting underway. 9 points for pole position, and then you look at the race points as well, how big of a gap there is between first and even fifth position, where 45 points for first, 24 for fifth. It's therefore maybe no surprise, Ewan, when we take a look at the championship standings to see what is increasingly becoming a big gap at the front for Charles-Etienne Boucher.
Yeah, it's been 3 very good rounds so far from him, and proving to be pretty unbeatable as well. I think the one of the reasons anyway why that gap is so big is the race at Road America. If you look at those who were around him going into that race, and they still are in second, third and fourth, etc., they didn't have very good rounds at all, and so over his main championship rivals he was able to gain 40 points nearly, in some cases more than that, over his closest rivals.
And I love the way that you take a look at those team names as well. The Porsche Centres on the right side of the screen. That's going to be represented when we talk about the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada as well, and how those drivers all fare out. But when you look at the teams, it is still relatively close at the front between Porsche Lausanne and Porsche Rive-Sud, but very much expecting those drivers in particular and those teams and centres to be the ones pushing the tempo at the front of the field and really making things exciting. But we've made our way to the Styrian Mountains, and what a facility this is. You come and see the races we've seen here in the Porsche Esports Super Cup. It never disappoints. As ever, let's go ride around with someone more qualified than Ewan and myself for a lap around this wonderful facility.
Hey guys, Phil Bouchard here, 2022 champion of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. We're here at Rebel Ring in the 2022 champion's car, Antoine Lacharité, driving for Porsche Lausanne Advanced Motorsport. Coming to the last corner, we're going to use a wide exit, getting lots of speed in to set our lap. Turn 1 is a uphill braking zone, so we're going to get more grip because of the compression. Hard on the brakes, straight steering, turn in early. A lot of power early to clip that curb. Be mindful of the exit, though it's very limited on traction, as you can see. We can get loose a little bit. Now, turn 2 is flat, heading into turn 3, uphill braking zone again, so we can maximize our braking pressure. And then we want to ease off the brake and let the car roll with a bit more speed because we're going uphill. So that will slow down the car early on power to get a good exit once again. Very limited traction as we get to the elevation change. Now turn 4 is a downhill braking zone, so very hard to brake. We're going to have to use a little bit less braking to get the stability that we want. And then same thing as we start steering, the back end really wants to come around, so we need to be careful with that. Clipping the curve at apex and running all the way wide. Turn 5 is flat, setting turn 6 is going to be an off-camber corner, so limited grip again, light braking, the car understeers, and then as soon as you hit the power, the car starts to slide around, so be mindful of that. Opening as much as possible for the next corner, clipping the curb to get a little bit more rotation. Watch out an exit, again, it's very slippery. Coming to the last 2 corners, 9 and 10, very hard for track limits here. So I'm gonna open up as much as possible, light trail braking into the corner, use the curb at apex to get a little bit of kick of rotation, early on power all the way out, early on the brakes, turn the car, early on power to jump the curb with ease, tracking all the way out. Again, watch out track limit on exit. And here we have a lap at Red Bull Ring in Austria.
Not a bad lap as well by any means. Track limits, hot button talking point, and Paul Smith, arbiter of track limits. Great that he's probably not here on Porsche's Twitch here tonight. Ewan, how do you feel about the track limit discussion when we come to this facility in particular as the 20-minute qualifying session rolls itself underway?
I thought you were about to open that question out to a motorsport general question. That would have been a wild topic to get into. I think, yeah, it's one of the things that unfortunately has come to be expected around here, isn't it, really? It's one of those circuits where you can extend, especially these final 2 corners, of what we're going to be talking about a lot. But even, you know, elsewhere around the circuit, there's plenty of scope to get out of the bounds of the track limits. And unfortunately, that is sort of not encouraged by any means by iRacing, but it is sort of allowed and permitted in some sense. So it's a bit of a shame, really. But when the circuit is provided with such runoff that it is so inviting, there's not a lot that you can do as iRacing to really curb that.
I mean, if you're given the access to it, drivers are always going to take advantage. Now, still early stages of this session, so we're not probably expecting the representative times to be set, but I don't think we mentioned this and touched on it in the fixed, in the format when we were discussing it, but this is, of course, a fixed series, fixed setup series, and so that means that these drivers don't have the ability to yoink the fuel out of the car and dial it in for their own preference, and so sometimes we do see the longer build, especially on these GT4 tires, see them get the fastest laps. But look at the margin at the front right now, Ewan, where it's 4 thousandths between Charles-Etienne Boucher and Etienne Leger.
And this is what we're likely going to see throughout today as well, because everybody's in this draft train. This is why qualifying is actually very interesting at this circuit. Everyone's out there together. They're trying to get the best lap possible, of course, trying to find some free track space in one sense, but they're also trying to find each other so that they can draft off of one another as well and gain time that way. So there's a real balance to strike here, and you sort of need to open a slight gap to push into, but you do need the draft. As you can see there, lots of improvements on this time round.
Yeah, Leger jumped to the front, but then instantly Charles-Etienne Boucher managed to pip him, and this time by 91 thousandths of a second, so a bit more of a comfortable margin. And then Brody Goebel, sits in third position. You can see him just riding at the tail end of this train. Vincent Trepigny, bus driver, of course, is going to wheel his GT4 around the Red Bull Ring. Currently sits 3/10 off of the mark in what is fourth position. And you can see right now, still waiting for plenty of drivers to put times in. 6 drivers so far, Ewan, have failed to put in a valid lap time.
And that's a slight problem around this circuit as well. You've got to make sure that you're within the track limits. We're talking about them being able to go without the white lines, but you can also pick up off tracks and so on around here, so you've got to be very careful of that. And you've also got to make sure that you're not making car contact. Now that sounds odd, because in qualifying, why would you be anywhere near anybody? But if you're doing a bit of bump drafting maybe, which you really want to avoid, then that will also give you a 0x and that will invalidate your time. So you need to be careful, as I said earlier, to sort of give yourself a bit of a gap to drive into, as Enzo Johansson's done here, to just, leave that car length or two so that you're not right up the back of someone, but you are getting the draft.
Porsche Centre Corvette car looking very, very good. Love as well that, of course, all the cars have the Porsche Centres on the side of them, so you can either look at the liveries, figure it out, or in the case where there are a few similar cars out there, try and figure it out from what we see. Johansson did not find any improvement as Arthur Chan slid his way up into 9th position, so almost halfway through this 20-minute session. And drivers find themselves slowly also probably burning some tyres. And we did see that last lap by. A handful pull to the side, Ewan, and let the fellow competitors slide their way on forward.
Well, exactly, but there's going to be a stage where somebody gets to the front and thinks, well, I don't want to be here anymore, and so they'll slide out of line, let a few more people through, and then the person who's newly at the front will do the same. So it's the sort of that washing machine effect that somebody's going to have to lead around. And we saw this in Formula 1 a few years ago, if you remember. Everybody just not wanting to go first, and they all weren't able to set a final time. Would be remarkable to see something similar, but you get the idea. That washing machine effect is quite difficult to contend with, and it does get very busy.
I like the way you're phrasing it, as that's Brody Goebel that pulls to the side, lets everyone follow on through. There's Porsche Centre North Toronto machine of Vincent Trepigny, who will cycle out of the double left-hander that seemingly goes on forever, and this is where you really find the measure of the tyres, how much stress you'll put down on them in these cars that don't necessarily have so much aero grip, and so you have to find the performance and the speed through other measures. Now, are we going to see improvements at this point in the session? You can hear the slight lift of the throttle as Trepigny just navigates his way down through the first of 2 right-handers. The second one, a corner where it falls away from you, and you can put 4 wheels onto the curb, although I don't know if that time's necessarily going to count. Mark Motors Motorsports and Porsche and Connor Bell to 10th, and indeed Vincent Trepigny, lap time invalidated.
I don't think it would have particularly mattered, because according to our timing there, it would have been half a second slower than his best anyway. But you get the point. You've got to be careful on track limits. As now we see another aspect of this session. How much fuel do you put in for a certain run, and how often are you going to be visiting pit lane? From what we've seen in this session, joining it a few minutes in, this is the first time it's really been in here, and they've got themselves back out there again onto the circuit. So how are they going to deal with that in terms of finding your drafting friends all over again?
Yeah, remember, fixed setup, so they're not necessarily configuring the amount of fuel that they have, but instead just trying to burn off and use it as well as possible. And also, you can see, seemingly warming the tyres as well, so going to be interesting if that plays its part. Now, a week ago, Charles-Etienne Boucher, power issues before the race, had to get the generator. He didn't even quite know what the English word for it was, bless him. It was quite endearing in the interview. His parents helped him get it sorted, and then went on to make the most of the difficult situation. That's really what you've got to do in conditions like that. And we saw the same from Sebastian Job in the Porsche Esports Super Cup last weekend. He'll come down to pit lane as well, and so another one that maybe thinks that he's seen the best of the tyres is look how busy pit lane will be.
Well, yeah, there you go. There's the main issue. Everyone coming down together, and once again going to have to find those free bits of track to get back out there all over again. Boucher being very quick in terms of getting back out there on the circuit, quicker than everybody else by all means. So he makes his way back out. But yeah, it's sort of that by any means mentality of from him, just making sure that he can race. We've heard multiple stories in sim racing over the years about the sort of way round internet problems. Heard of people racing off hotspots before and all sorts of crazy things that you wouldn't do on a normal day. It's not uncommon sometimes for these problems to arise because, as we all know, internet is not a 100% working all of the time thing.
Yes, funny you mentioned that. A couple of weeks ago, after one of our Porsche Esports Canada events, I woke up the next morning to one of my computers no longer working. It's a good thing that didn't happen during one of the broadcasts, because that would have been a quick end to the night, at least here on Porsche's Twitch, ride with Thomas Lavar, who is one of the few cars that is actually on track right now and seemingly improving. Of course, we saw a handful come in slightly earlier and get their tires reset and refreshed on their cars. We'll see couple more, I think, come back down as there comes Ross Booth, followed in by the Mark Motors Porsche of Connor Bell. Love the purple and green, the very distinctive colors that make it nice and easy for us to figure out. Now, I thought Thomas Lavar was still on track. Am I about to be proven wrong? Is he going to jink the driver's right-hand side?
Looks like it. He was diving for an early apex there. Slow down and get yourself into pit lane just about. But he's seemingly led the current pole sitter around this lap, although I think this is Charles-Etienne Boucher's out lap, if you like, from the pit lane. So we'll be starting it all over again now. Just under a tenth of a second, the gap between Boucher and Legier at the top of the standings. No draft here at all, though, for the driver of the 89, which might be a problem. Just depends on whether his previous best was set with the draft, and then be difficult to beat, I suppose.
I did see him in that long train, but no draft is not always bad. We've seen that in various series across the years, that you can set a relatively decent time if you just hit your marks and maximize it. You can see that he's towing along a driver behind, but at least as he runs right now down the hill into what is a difficult braking zone in the Cup car, of course, with its lack of ABS, but here in the GT4 machine, having that stability underneath you, knowing that if you're a bit too aggressive, you have the aid of the car to bail you out of that situation. You often see drivers just going that bit more aggressive, and this is a complex as well, which I really love. Because it's quite flat as well, you've got to be so precise in the line that you run to really get the most out of the corner.
Yeah, I've got to say, I find these corners a little bit frustrating in GT cars because it feels like they go on for a very, very long time. When you're effectively making a full switch around, if you're looking at the track map from the entrance to turn 6 to the exit of turn 7, it's a lot of long left-handers there where you're feeling like the front end is just not biting, but that's just what GT racing is all about. We're opening out the final corner all over again here, and we'll see if there's going to be a time. That was really wide on the way in, but I guess he can get away with it. He can't go any quicker though, by the looks of that. So yeah, I don't know. I'd find that personally a bit frustrating in GT3 cars, but I've got to say, or GT4 cars I should say, but in high downforce, those couple of corners are very nice indeed.
Logan Patcher finally jumps onto the board in a big way in the Porsche Prestige car. He was down towards the bottom earlier on, finally able to represent himself half a second off though. You can see there's a bit of a gulf between those top two, and you mentioned draft maybe playing its part. Will be interesting to see if these drivers do attempt to now link back up. You can see that's what Logan's trying to do, slows and allows 3 or 4 cars to just slide up his inside. As 6 minutes left to go, he tries to then cool the tires off. There's Boucher, there's Leger. You can see different approaches being taken. He's got to find 91 thousandths. He'll try and find it in the draft.
He will, but I'm a little bit worried about the proximity of the two cars in front, not least because they're so close together actually at the moment. Late on the brakes here at turn 4, and that's quite deep into the corner, maybe missing the apex ever so slightly, but once again closes on those 2 in front. You don't want to be sort of slowed up by them in the final 2 turns, which might happen at this rate.
Patience on throttle. In the eyes as well, not blinking right now. A little bit of a slide. Now, Etienne Leger, round 1, of course, didn't necessarily go his way. First in qualifying, and then with the fight back after that. Last time at Road America, qualifying wasn't all bad. It was more just how the race unfolded with how chaotic everything was. And as Ewan mentioned, Charles-Etienne Boucher builds up the 53-plus point lead by virtue, really, of the fact that everyone else fell into major trouble. You can see the lap time in the bottom right, no improvement, and only a 10th off for Etienne Leger in draft, but maybe a bit of a sign that the track's falling away from these drivers, Ewan, given that no one seemingly is finding major improvements.
Yeah, that may be the reason. It's been quite a while now since we saw anything. I think Logan Patchka, the only reason he improved was the fact that he didn't really have a time before. He did have one, but it was quite slow compared to what you'd expect to see from him. So maybe we are seeing that track just fall away. I've got faith, though, in Etienne Leger in terms of this championship season, though, because we saw at Fuji he is able to survive a fight, if you like. He's able to sustain a big battle for a race win. It's just the other 2 races which have really let him down. I mean, he's not had a consistent nice finish, if you like. That hasn't been that win at Fuji, so if he can string some of them together and finish ahead of Boucher in a couple of these races, then you never know.
You can see how close Logan Patcher got to the back of the number 10 machine as they fly their way back through the middle sector. That's Curtis Fung, who's in 17th, so you have maybe a mismatch in terms of speed up and down the grid, and heavens above, 53 degrees Celsius track temperature. I think that explains you and why they're so quick to come back down to pit lane and get a fresh set of boots.
Yeah, exactly. That explains a whole lot of what we've just been seeing throughout this session so far. To translate that to Fahrenheit, it's like 130, 140.
Yeah, but those are fake units, so why do we need to translate it?
Sorry.
Shots fired.
I'm just wary of anyone awake at this time in the morning is probably using the wrong units. Anyway, that's a pure guess. It's in the hundreds, though, anyway, and it's very, very hot.
I'm pretty sure
the translation.
Pretty sure. Ooh, it's Justin Rem to 7. I'm pretty sure Canada uses Celsius. I'm sure the chat can let us know.
That's true. Maybe. They should do.
Don't they use kilometers rather than miles? So they're also smart there, Ewan.
Yeah. To be fair, I use kilometres in my life, to be fair, but the rest of England doesn't. So.
Exactly. Oh, okay. I'm glad to hear that you are sane, though, because yes. 1,000 meters equaling 1 kilometer. It's simple, you know?
Yep, I know how long a meter is, so I can picture 1,000 of them, etc. I don't know how much 1.6 thousand meters is, or whatever. You get what I mean?
I'm sure you could find a way to guesstimate, but, you know, it wouldn't be very accurate.
Mile. It's very difficult. It's just not a round number, is it, a mile, really? It's just very
It's not even a round number in yards, is it?
Don't think so, no.
We've got really off topic. Anyway, 2 minutes left to go in this qualifying session. You can see above on our Tag Heuer timing clock. Back to the left they go. And because these lap times are, 1:37s, it's going to be this and maybe one more that these drivers will be on. So going to be very curious to see what times we're going to see. Are we going to find any improvements here as we head back towards the line? And it's some fast drivers that are in this queue right now. I should point that one out as well. You got Trepanier leading from Leger, and then Logan Patch is the one that sits behind them. So handful of drivers up front that you might expect to maybe improve or set themselves up for the final lap. No changes, at least yet, on that left-hand side, except Logan Patcher to 2nd, Christian Muniz to 6th as well.
Well, there have finally been some improvements. I thought this track was going away from us and we weren't going to see any more improvements in this qualifying session, actually, but that is not been the case. Very clearly, there is still time left in this circuit, and so maybe Etienne Leger will be encouraged by this. The problem is Vincent Trepanier has got ahead of him, and he's quite close ahead of him as well. So is he going to have that sort of speed to push into, that gap to push into, if you like, to try and displace this man, Charles-Etienne Boucher, who's currently leading?
One more driver, though, that may be still in contention, and one driver out of draft. Say hello once again to Brody Goebel in that motion rig of his as he crosses the line to be 3/10 off the mark on the penultimate attempt. One more time of being thrown around this track in qualifying to really make the most of it. That's a wild ride, isn't it, Ewan?
Yeah, especially wild given our static camera that we've got pointing towards in there. Makes it look especially wild, but great advert for motion simulators, if you like, that really feeling the bumps and the curves especially, which you'll be battling with here.
Can you imagine what your neighbors, if you're in an apartment building like myself, would think? That is Ross Booth, who that didn't look particularly quick out of the penultimate corner. I will just say he'll be the first to see the checkered flag, though, in this latest qualifying session in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge. Canada, of course, made our way on over to the Red Bull Ring. Charles-Etienne Boucher, not sure how he's trending, but doesn't seem as though too many drivers are going to really be challenging him. There's a look at the trio across the line. Trepignet to fourth, no improvement from Etienne Leger, no improvement from Logan Patcher either, as Boucher is in pit lane and calling the session quits.
Yeah, he didn't even get to the line, I don't believe. By the way, on my screen, I've got a very, very, very minor improvement from Etienne Leger, but like, literal thousandths of a second and nothing to really speak of. And I don't think Logan Patcher improved. No, he didn't, did he? So he said that. So second place for them, and no improvements, I don't think, anywhere in that group. Some others around the circuit, though, from drivers moving into the top 10 or trying to.
Well, it's Brody Goebel, 4 wheels off the track, and I can't imagine that lap time's going to count, is it? No, he stays in 5th. It would have actually been an improvement. It was a 37.316, so it would have jumped him in front of Trepignet, but iRacing's track limit system misses nothing as drivers head down onto pit lane, something that they don't have to deal with you in a 20-minute qualifying session.
No, and we won't be seeing them down pit lane during the race. We'll be seeing a very exciting race, I think. We've got 3 drivers within a tenth of a second. It's the 3 usual suspects, you could argue, the ones we expected to be there. And so with such draft around here in qualifying, it was such a factor there. It's definitely going to be a factor in the race, keeping things nice and close together for a good race.
We will grab a look at your qualifying results. Of course, Charles-Etienne Boucher once again on top, and the Golden Locks, Boucle d'Or himself, really shining bright right now. Logan Patcher for Porsche Prestige going to try and bring the fight once more. 800ths off the pace in qualifying, and then Etienne Leger, Vincent Trepignet, Brody Goebel, Christian Muniz, and then Mobin Khan and Enzo Johansson, your front 4 rows. Justin Rem and Giovanni Romano make up the rest of the top 10. 11th for Ross Booth, 12th for Curtis Fung, and then through the rest of the field, Michael Kondacioglu, Connor Bell, Arthur Chan, Thomas Lavoie, Arnaud Genet, Richard Quinn, Nicky Borovic, and Tristan Hurl. And we're still only 1.2 seconds through the field. We're not talking big margins in this level of competition, but down the back, it's going to be Patrick Mason, Lyndon Swaby, and then Michael McLeod. The 23 drivers get ready to go racing. Always great to be able to catch up with our pole sitter. Let's see if once again we can bring in Charles-Etienne Boucher. Charles, I mean, another qualifying session. I've got to ask, how stressful was this? Is your power at least holding up today?
I mean, I have no clue once again how I'm on pole, because I basically off-tracked every single lap that I had other than this one lap, so pretty happy about that. But yeah, it's gonna be a NASCAR race, as I like to say.
So
it's gonna
So you're expecting a bit of slingshotting, a bit of drafting. Can I ask how you think track limits are going to play its part? Are you worried at all about incident limit?
I mean, I've practiced a lot of run, only just focusing on not making X. But to be fair, when you're following a car, it's just you can't see anything. So it's going to be hard to see who can do the least amount of X and try to stay ahead, because well, as I said, you can't see nothing behind the car. So we'll see how it goes. Not 100% sure how it'll go, but it's gonna be a Daytona 200.
One more question before we let you go. What do you end up doing between qualifying and the race actually starting? We've got one more qualifying session to go watch. Do you go and eat something? Do you just go and grab a break?
Drink water, man. I mean, water and practice. That's about it, to be fair. I don't feel like going to eat before going in a race, so yeah, just water. Stay hydrated.
4 poles in a row for Charles-Etienne Boucher. Seems to be working well for him, and we'll see him, of course, roll from the front once again in race trim. That was a qualifying session in the books, and of course we've got one more still left to come. Don't go anywhere here on Porsche's Twitch channel. We'll be right back with the qualifying session for the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. Ready to charge once more as the drivers must go fast. It's time to break out the 992 Cup cars, and the qualifying session for the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada drivers will try and make their way to the top of the time chart. Arjuna Kankipati once again alongside with Ewan O'Leary as we get set to go, and already I can tell you that Ewan, I am going to be hyper fixated for the next 20 minutes on track limits, just based on what Charles-Etienne Boucher told us just before our break. He only got one valid lap time, he feels. Imagine what pressure these drivers in the Cup car will be under with no driver aids to help them out.
Exactly, it's by all accounts more difficult car to drive as a result of that, but the track limits stay the same in terms of staying away from those off tracks, and that's going to be really important. The threat of getting no time at all diminished slightly because it is a 20-minute session, but you absolutely have to get a time on the board because qualifying relatively important. You have to make it in that front group or so, which will form early in the race.
You can hear the cars begin to rev their engines. Let's talk a little bit, though, once again, about this series in particular. We mentioned a ladder being built in the world of Porsche Esports Canada. This Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada, new for 2024, is open to Canadian residents 18 years or older. Remember, the Sprint Challenge Canada, Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, that is, 15 years or older. You are eligible to enter. And you go from a 25-minute race with fixed setup to an open setup competition for a 40-minute race. You're all fighting for, again, a great Drivers' Championship prize, which does include a Porsche track experience at the one of the Porsche Experience Centres, and then, of course, you have the Tag Heuer Connected Watch for the Smooth Operator Award, and the LEGO Speed Champion Porsche 963 for the LEGO Play Well Award, and visit lego.com to check out the full assortment of Porsche sets, including the LEGO Speed Champions Porsche 963 and Lego Icons Porsche 911. Same points format that these drivers have, where it begins in qualifying and then rolls over to the race itself. And this time, less of a gargantuan gap at the very front. Ewan, we also have a tie for third, but Andrew Carone, searching to finally be crowned champion in the world of Porsche Esports Canada, leads from the defending champ, Antoine Lacharite.
Yeah, and Lacharite, with his win at Road America last time out, just closed that gap by 10 points or so. Was getting to a large gap after a couple of wins from Caron at the start of the season, but Lacharite is making some of that ground back. I would very much argue as well that Ian Gagnon-Renault and Gregory Hoveson are very much involved there too. The gap's further back than that, a little bit large, but there's still plenty to play for here, and plenty of drivers who will fancy their chances with still 5 rounds to go.
Yeah, you mentioned, right, 5 rounds, including today, still left to go. And the way the schedule works is after this, we get a week off before we go racing for 2 more back-to-back weeks. So it's an opportunity for the drivers to refresh, reset their minds after the first half of the season, and to really dial themselves in. Once again, 20 minutes thrown onto the Tag Heuer timing clock at the top of your screen, and we watch those Porsche 992 Cup cars roll around here at the beginning of this qualifying session. We jump on board with Alex Ellis, a driver that's had his fair share of fights over the course of the season so far. You can take a look at him as well, the look of focus right now. You can see drivers trying to condition their tire. In the open setup that we have here, you're going to see drivers be able to do some unique things to get the most from the car.
Yeah, we certainly are, and that will slightly be done internally, of course, but we're going to see the sort of results of that, if you like, from this qualifying session very shortly. More moving over and getting out the way for drafting as well. The effect of the draft as cars get quicker does slightly diminish as you go up the ladder, if you like, but that doesn't mean it won't be important around here. It's going to be once again about finding that free track space, if you can, around what is not the longest circuit in the world.
No, definitely not long by any means. The elevation, of course, may be more of a talking point when you talk about the difference between the highest and the lowest part. I get the sense as well when you get to the middle sector in this track in particular, it becomes a rather interesting balance to try and find on the knife edge to get the most from the car. Now, remember, it's 4 poles in a row when it comes to the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada for Charles-Etienne Boucher. Not sure necessarily what I'm expecting when it comes to the qualifying session here, because we have seen, of course, drivers be strong. You know, Andrew Carone's been up there in the top 5 so far across of all 3 of the qualifying sessions we've had. But no one driver to me, Ewan, has really made their name known as, well, look at that, half a second to the top goes Ian Gagnon-Renault.
Yeah, I can't see that lasting, to be honest. I think we're going to see a lot of changes throughout, but we talk all the time about qualifying and whether it really is important, and I still really believe it is in this series, even though that it's not the biggest field in the world, as Andrew Caron putting any doubts about his pace completely to bed immediately there. It's still important because we've seen time and time again that a group forms at the front of the field, and you've got to be part of it. If you're starting at the back of the field, it's all well and good being quick and overtaking everybody, but it's no good if there's going to be a group that you're not a part of. So it is important to be up there. Maybe on pole is not necessarily a requirement, but definitely just get up there at the very least.
Yeah. You can see more and more drivers, by the way, 1 lap done, probably going to be coming down to pit lane as well. So I think we're going to see a lot more cycling and circulating around the track, and I hope that no one gets in trouble with our live race stewards for impeding. We did see plenty of penalties at Road America and race control incidents due to rather, let's be honest, unfortunate incidents in qualifying that then give you points penalties for the main championship, something you definitely don't want to be racking up and accruing over the course of the season. Here comes the Porsche Centre marker machine, though. Valentin Crusoe through the middle sector. Look at the hands, trying to keep the car as smooth as possible, and gets a little bit sideways.
He certainly does. One thing I noticed that's quite apparent from him is that he has his fingers constantly on the gear shifting paddles just behind the wheel. That's not something that I do, I've got to be honest with you. I grip the wheel properly instead of keeping my hands over the gear shifting pedal, just move it as and when. But it's just a difference in style, and he has not going to improve as a result of that time there. But there you go. Good look as to what he's doing to get around this circuit here this afternoon. Plenty of great onboard cameras and looks at these guys as they're going around here and competing here tonight. All of the different setups always very interesting to look at.
Yep, you can see, by the way, Romagnolo on pit lane, Gregory Hoverson, who grabbed pole not long ago, a couple of weeks ago I should say at this point now, but almost half a second off of Antoine Lacharite. We've still got 12 minutes left to go, and I think that time is going to take some beating. Look at the conditions as well, though. 48 degrees Celsius. Now, it's a different session than the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, so you can't really take weather comparisons directly. They'll all be in a slightly different virtual world if you pick up what I'm putting down. What we can probably get a pretty good sense for you in is that 48 degrees Celsius, 3 p.m. virtual standard time. Temperature's only going to be going down probably even in these next 12 minutes.
Yeah, it is going to be tailing off from the start of the day, but how much? I don't suspect it will be too much, especially in this qualifying session, but maybe later on it will be more of a factor. And one thing to note as well about that, in the high 40s, it's not exactly cool temperatures, is it? It's not particularly ideal. If you were to set this session up to go as quickly as you possibly can, then you wouldn't put it up to the high 40s, I wouldn't have thought. So these tyres will be sliding around a little bit and getting pretty warm. Whether it will be quite as dramatic as what we saw in the Sprint Challenge earlier, I'm hesitant to say that it would be. However, it's not far away from those very similar conditions.
Yeah, and I like as well, right, that warm conditions also means the drivers have got to figure out what works on tyres. Now, Gregory Hoverson does another lap. He jumps the second in front of Caron, in front of Gagnon Renault, and in front of Romagnolo. 11 minutes now left. I think that's probably going to be... I don't want to make assumptions, but, you know, that's his third flying lap in a row. You wouldn't traditionally expect it to continue to build, but I guess one thing that the drivers do have to factor in is they have to drive their way back around to pit lane, and they can't just reset, you know, pull to the side and take the free toe that sim racing sometimes gives you. If you have a big crash out on qualifying and you can't drive your car back, that's it done for the go fast time.
Yeah, and so you've got to factor that into your session, if you like, and we saw most of the Sprint Challenge drivers splitting it in half in that sense, just going into the pit lane around this time in the session. It looks like we might see something similar with the way that they're driving around at the moment. Alex Bergeron taking a pretty gingerly approach to turn 7 and 8 on that occasion. Will he be in on this occasion, or will he continue? He is in. So this is going to mark the start, I think, of a lot of pit stops, a lot of tyre changes, the only ones, of course, but it's necessary in temperatures like this.
And we did see in the Sprint Challenge Canada that some teams, some drivers in their Porsche Centres electing not to actually do a manual pit stop, but instead get in what iRacing we'd call a new car, and so you're then just basically reset to the condition you were in before you left the pit lane. Some electing, though, to get 4 tires and put some fuel in. That was an interesting distinction. Not sure necessarily it makes such a difference here where the drivers already have their open setups. There goes Caron to the final corner. Finds some improvement in time, bumps his way back to second, but 3/10 clear is still Antoine Lacharite. That time, as I mentioned, going to take some beating. Really
going to take some beating, and it's difficult to see where that's going to come from. If you look at the next 3/10 of a second, that covers the next 3 drivers. The top 10 covered by less than a second. I don't suspect that time will be beaten, actually, for Antoine Lacharite, as he's slowing down to a crawl here almost to weave around. Don't get the logic of that necessarily, but anyway, he's deciding to let a lot of people through, and he's got a queue behind him now too.
It's all about the tyre conditioning. We've seen some very, very weird things in the Porsche Esports Super Cup when it comes to drivers trying to actually get their car bouncing in the air. which actually gives you slightly better tyre life. We saw a similar thing at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. These drivers at this level, in their search for championship glory, will find every little advantage they can. That's a wide arc out of that final corner. That's right on board. He's already got pole. Is he going to improve on the 131.407? There's only one way to find out. Out of turn number 1, down through the gears. Use the inside curve for a bit of rotation. Be careful on the outside not to unsettle your car and go a bit Tony Hawk style on that curb. In towards the braking zone, up the hill. And this is where let gravity help you. Let it slow you down as well. And down from 6th gear. Bang, bang, bang. Be careful on traction as you get back onto the power. The track climbs with you as you stamp onto the loud pedal, but it still can be a little unsettling as you dive down into the middle sector.
He's so smooth, isn't he, Antoine Lasserite? Really smooth on the turn in. Just look at him. He does one movement on the way in. This is tricky braking zones we were talking about earlier. One movement on the way in, one movement on the way out. Slight correction on that occasion, but it's a really difficult corner. Braking downhill there to turn 4. Now into the very long left-handers at 6 and 7. Almost looks like he's taking pretty gingerly on the way in, but look at that. One steering movement to put the lock in to get round the turn, and he opened it out in one movement as well. A little bit more correcting on the exit of 7 on that occasion, but just so silky smooth, and that's exactly how he's 3 attempts clear of the field at the moment.
And remember, already one Porsche Lozon car on pole, with Charles-Etienne Boucher continuing the streak, and defending champ do it as well. Out to the final corner. Now that was about as close as you can really dare on track limits, and he doesn't look too worried. So what will the time be? A 31.407 to beat, and a 31.292. 4 tenths clear of the field now. A statement at the front.
Very much a statement, because he probably didn't need to do that, but now that he has, he's really laid the marker down for everybody else to catch me if you can, and I don't think anybody is going to be able to. However, you never know. Lasserite there, though, was just so good through the lap. Just no mistakes at all. As you said, through the final corner, absolutely maximising things. He may be wondering how he can go quicker than that.
Blake Townend, by the way, wants to make sure that commentators can't go and investigate behind him, and I don't blame him. We are very, very nosy people by our nature, but I don't know if this is going to be improvement. You can see him pull to the side, and I think he just recognizes 6 minutes left to go. Time's winding down. Currently sits inside of the top 10. It's not a terrible place to be by any means. The Mark Motors Porsche of Adrian Paluk out through turn number 1, the purple and orange colors. Back over to Alex Ellison. You know, with these drivers, what we are definitely seeing you in is a lot less reliance on draft, especially here in the qualifying part of the session.
Yeah, and I wonder how that's going to affect the racing here, because in the sprint challenge for most of the races so far, we've seen trains form at the front and races settle towards the end, if you like, because everybody's still so close. Is that going to be the same in the Carrera Cup? Because, as you say, it's not been important at all. In fact, you can very much do without the draft and the distraction of someone in front of you in this class. Just that little bit of extra speed in this car, meaning that it's not quite as powerful and as beneficial to sit behind someone in the same way. So, wouldn't know how that is going to affect the racing. Is Lasserite actually quicker than everyone else enough, if you catch what I mean, to sort of forego the draft entirely and drive to the line solo?
I'm picking on what you're putting down. Interesting that that's like, I think, our 3rd or 4th driver in this series alone that's actually got actual race belts on their sim rig, as we took a look at Josiah Farrow, who just punched his way forward up into what was 11th at the time, now bumped down to 12th because Christopher Cook has just jumped up the order in the 66 machine to 6, triple sixes, nothing devilish about that. Here comes Carone, though, and again, let's talk Porsche Centres as well, because he represents Porsche Centre. Reeve Sood does seem as though it's going to be between Reeve Sood and Porsche Lozon in our Porsche Esports Canada Constructors Championship, given the form that we've seen already halfway through this season. You can see it's not necessarily the fastest out of the final couple of corners. This might be a bit of a building lap as well, just trying to get the tyres into the window that he wants them to be in. 31.7 to beat. I mean, he'll still find a good 2 tenths or so, but he's still searching for another 3 tenths to get to pole.
Yeah, so he's not even halved his margin, has he, in that lap there? He's not even halved the deficit that he had to Antoine Lasserite. What about Gregory Hovson? pretty stern-faced over the line. That is not a representative lap time. This is going to be one you would have thought for him, but such a big gap to try and cross. It makes you wonder how Lasciarite really does it and how he's gone quite so quickly in this qualifying session.
Ian Gagnon, Reed likes to lean a lot, has just gone to third in the qualifying order. I love, by the way, that paint scheme on the Porsche Centre North Toronto car. He's only 27,000 off the back of Corone. So again, we're talking small margins, just not for your pole sitter. That's looking very, very comfortable at the front of the field. Hoverson seems to be on a relatively decent lap, at least as it would seem right now. That's Rory Windrum that will power out of the final corner. And again, remember, there are drivers up and down through the championship order that are looking to try and accumulate points. That's not a driver that was on a qualifying lap, though.
It doesn't look like it in the iconic colours anyway, even without the iconic logos, if you like. So there you go. But it's so close for sort of outside of the top 10, just looking at sort of 10 to 20, half a second involved in that, and that's going to make for a really interesting race, I think, even if we might not get a battle for the win that we're hoping for, although I'm hoping so. We may not get that. We may not get that. We'll get a lot in the midfield for sure.
Look at this guy. He joins us for the first time. He's already trying to set our expectations low. No, Ewan, we've got to promise high and deliver high. That's what we do here on Porsche's Twitch, okay?
Okay, well, I'll try, but I tend to set expectations low so I can overachieve.
Oh, I mean, you want to set expectations high. We've got a busy day coming up on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a few moments' time, though, because 2 minutes to go on our Tag Heuer timing clock. We're into the final moments of qualifying. Drivers have got to hit the line with at least 131, 132 left on the clock for them to be allowed to start their final lap time. That's what the likes of Alexandre Lacassa trying to set up right now. Lets a couple of cars go on forward as Valentin Crusoe's going to be the one that dives to the line, and we'll see one more lap left to go in this qualifying session.
It's last chance saloon for everybody now then. Anyone who crosses the line will not get a chance after this next one. And interesting that there is a little bit of a train forming here. Nothing too close together, if you like, but interesting to note that they're benefiting from a little bit of slipstream as Antoine Lasciarite makes his way through the final couple of corners, maybe for the final time. Andrew Caron is already into the pit lane and session over. Is this one last show of dominance at the end?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow, it is.
131, 195. There are drivers that sometimes cannot help themselves, and I look at the reaction from Antoine as well. Couldn't tell he's just gone pole by 0.4 of a second.
Oh, you could say that there are some drivers who don't know when to stop. He is one of them by the looks of it. He has really pushed the boat out there in terms of putting everyone else out of sight completely. Gregory Hovson did actually improve on that lap there, but doesn't move from 4th place any further. He will be on the second row at best for the grid, but it looks like we've got the front rows sorted. We've certainly got the pole sitter sorted, you would have thought.
There's no way. No way. Alex Ellis jumps to 7th, but given how no one's been in the same ballpark, the same country as Lasciarite, defending champion surely has secured pole position. There goes Luke Scavas to the line. Not going to be an improvement for him. He'll start 23rd in his number 31. There goes Josiah Farrow, another driver that will not find any improvement. So now we just wait and see. Will anybody get the chance to try and go quicker? Nope. There's going to be a handful of cars to pit lane instead.
It is everyone figuring that they've probably gone as quick as they possibly can in this session now. Not many drivers left out there on the circuit. 1 or 2 trickling over the line, but no improvements inside the top 10. There was Jonathan Ouellette going quicker outside of it. He's up to 13th place, but only a 10th away from the top 10. There's a spin into the front straight.
Adrian Paluk in the Mark Motors Porsche, the one that had the unfortunate pirouette for us, but at least gave us some excitement, because not much exciting about drivers just diving down on towards that pit entry, as you can see so many doing there. Still a stricken car. Remember, don't want to reset if you don't have to. Gagnon Renault, dying stages, checkered flag flying to the outside of the front row.
And that is very important indeed, to just get alongside Antoine Lasciarite, and then you're in with a chance for sure. Andrew Caron might not have been expecting that, to be honest. I thought he was out of sight actually, and I thought the front row was sorted, but Renault has got himself into second position with a good late lap time, and it does show that, well, Lasciarito has found some speed towards the end here. Everybody else has sort of been following him in a sense, and all been going slightly quicker too. Speaking of which, Giuliano Romagnolo making one of the smallest improvements I've ever seen, about 0.06 of a second.
And he was, of course, remember, second in qualifying in the opening round, had a fantastic tussle until just unfortunate contact sent him back to the rear, and he's not going to improve from there. So session in the books, and our driver is going to get the few moments, of course, to relax, to reset, and to flip the switch into race mode. Let's take a look at those results. We'll grab a chat with our pole sitter as well. And Antoine Lasciarito, 3/10 clear in the Porsche Lozon machine. It's back-to-back poles on our event here at Red Bull Ring for the Porsche Centre, and still a big margin to Ian Gagnon Renault behind. Andrew Caron and then Gregory Hoverson third and fourth position. And once again, interesting to see that plenty of consistent qualifiers now up towards the front. Still waiting to see someone as dominant as Charles-Etienne Boucher. Giuliano Romagnolo then fifth in front of Christopher Cook, and then Alex Ellis, Alex Bergeron, Adrian Paluk, and then Josh Manalo make up the rest of the top 10. And 1 second through that top 10 as well. Relatively bigger spread than what we saw with the GT4 machines. Blake Townend then 11th, with Savio Panicha for the Porsche Centre Winnipeg 12th, Jonathan Oulet, Josiah Farrow, and then Alexandre Lacasse, the rest of your top 15, with Rory Windrum and then Valentin Crusoe, Dylan Cole and Matt Murphy, and Spencer Reitzma, your top 20. Just 3 more drivers, of course, Luke Cicerone, Richard Hibbs, and Luke Scabbas. 23 cars, of course, in qualifying, but only 1 driver in pole position. Let's dial up your pole position sitter, Antoine Lasciarito, if we can, in a few moments' time, and have a chat with him, because, of course, what a sensational qualifying lap, and I can only imagine just what is going through his mind. I mean, it's always interesting to try and figure out what happens in those qualifying sessions. Antoine, we talked to Charles-Etienne Boucher. He said that he didn't get many valid lap times. How were track limits for you in that qualifying session?
To be honest, way better than I thought. Honestly, I didn't get any off track. I didn't need to abort any of my lap. So yeah, it was pretty good. Every time I was improving, so it gave me a lot of confidence to push at the end, and but a pretty solid lap.
Let's talk about the margin as well, because you say pretty solid lap. We were waiting to see if anyone would get close to you. 3/10 at the Red Bull Ring. How comfortable are you feeling with this combination that we have at hand?
Yeah, pretty comfortable, to be honest. Maybe they were like a 10th or 2. I think I missed a couple of apex on my lap, but overall I'm quite happy. I did the job, and yeah, I think was the lap that I was looking for.
Let's talk championship very quickly, right? Because we're already, it's crazy to think, already getting to the halfway mark as you try and defend your championship. How are you feeling going into today's round, into the back half of the season with how things have played out?
Feel pretty confident, to be honest. The first round wasn't pretty good for me, but yeah, pick up the pace at the third round, and this round is even better. So yeah, looking forward for the next round to see if I can continue with that pace.
One more question, we'll let you go. Is draft important in these Cup cars? Charles-Etienne Boucher thinks it is in the Cup, in the Cayman rather.
Yeah, it's super important, but in quality it's quite a risk because of the off track. But I think the race is gonna be like a long stack file following very close each other. So yeah, it's going to be very important.
Sounds exciting. I love the sound of that. Congratulations on pole, Antoine, and best of luck in the main events.
Thank you.
Always great to be able to chat to the pole sitter. Really love that, you know, they also get their chance to relax, to regroup, and to gather their thoughts and emotion before they go racing. And 2 races lie ahead of us here on Porsche's Twitch channel. Don't go anywhere. It's the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge, the Porsche Caymans, up first here in the Styrian Mountains.
Welcome back to episode 4 of Porsche Esports Tech Talks on Twitch. I'm your host, Joanne Bluen. We're gearing up for round 4 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge Canada with official timing partner Tag Heuer. Make sure to tune in right here on Twitch before each stream to catch up with some of Canada's most talented and recognized race car drivers so they can walk you through some key technical tips and tricks from their experiences in the world of racing. Today, we're going to jump into a Porsche 911 at the Porsche Ice Experience with Ben Cooper, driving instructor and world karting champion, to get his perspective on the importance of the first corner.
Well, it's the famous saying there, you can't win a race in the first corner, but you can definitely lose it. So that just show how important it is. You know, you're better off erring a little bit on the side of caution in the first couple of corners, because, like I said, you can definitely lose a race in the first few corners, and I have, and that's the way you learn. My biggest tip would be don't do anything risky. Risk over reward. So as you're driving around, you have to judge whether what you're thinking of doing is worth the risk compared to the reward you're going to get. So for example, if you're in a train of 5 or 6 cars and you're the 4th or 3rd car in line and you go for a move around the outside, the chances are you're probably going to gain 1, but more likely you're going to lose 2 or 3 spots. So yeah, risk over reward would be my main thing.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. This is critical insight, especially for this series where we have a large field of cars competing. As you may or may not know, the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge Canada 2024 season spans over 8 rounds and takes competitors to the world's most exciting yet challenging circuits. Who will be victorious in the Red Bull Ring in Austria? This picturesque high-speed track rewards drivers that can maintain speed and momentum through the corners. Who's going to take the top step? I'm Joanne Bluen. See you in the next episode of Tech Talks on Thursday, April 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Twitch. Don't you miss it.
Time to finally get the green flags out in the air. Racing is in the midst, and we're landed at the Styrian Mountains. Welcome back to Porsche Switch for the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, as the first of 2 races gets ready to get underway. Our Junior Kanki party joined alongside by Ewan O'Leary as we get ready to go. And Ewan, qualifying's always exciting, and I love that we put our emphasis on it. We give the drivers the chance to focus on that, and then to get ready to go racing, it just gives that little bit more intensity into the air.
It does. It builds things up nicely for us ahead of a 25-minute race that we have in the Sprint Challenge coming up at the Red Bull Ring. Very much looking forward to it. Qualifying was an interesting affair in terms of working your way around traffic and getting some draft as well. But now it's time to really use the draft, to really get your elbows out as well. I suspect that's what we're going to see throughout the race today.
I think we're expecting in this race, right, given the worlds of Charles-Etienne Boucher draft to play its part. A quick look at the schedule again, just a reminder that after this we're off for a week. We return at the Circuit of the Americas, and what a run we have to the May 16th season finale date that you should have all circled on your calendar, because it's going to be plenty fun. It's going to be plenty exciting. Drivers have got their instructions, though, to roll down trackside to get ready to go racing. Let's take you through the starting grid for what's bound to be a fascinating 25 minutes of racing action. It's Mr. Boucle d'Or, Charles-Etienne Boucher, perfect in qualifying so far, that once again will lead us to the front, and a familiar foe in the form of Logan Patcher will roll alongside. Etienne Leger and Vincent Trepnay 3rd and 4th positions, with less than a tenth splitting those front 3 drivers. And then Brody Goebel for the Porsche Centre Vancouver, going to be alongside Christian Muniz on the 3rd row of the starting grid. 7th for Mobin Khan in the Porsche Centre West Island machine. I think that's his best qualifying of the season. Really managed to get the most from the car. Enzo Johansson alongside. And then Justin Rem, Giovanni Romano, 9th and 10th for the pair of them. Ross Booth and Curtis Fung line up 11th and 12th, with 13th going the way of Michael Kondaccioglu, still trying to get his qualifying momentum kicked back into the same form we saw in the season opener. Connor Bell, Arthur Chan and Thomas Lavoie line up behind, with Arnaud Genet and Richard Quinn through the top 18. 1 second effectively through those cars. And then Nicky Borovich, Tristan Hurl, Patrick Mason, Lyndon Swaby, and Michael McLeod round out the 23 drivers that get ready to go racing. A quick rundown through the grid, because it's also a quick formation lap, Ewan, for these drivers to get some temperature into their tires. But of course, we saw in the qualifying session there was already plenty of temperature in the air and on the track.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good job. They won't really have to worry about a lack of tyre temperature. Maybe, in fact, the opposite way. High 40s again in Celsius for the track temperature. And so it will be about keeping those tyres in the window, making sure you don't overheat them a little bit. That can be a dangerous, vicious cycle that you can get yourself into. But not a long formation lap at all, not long to get yourself ready. And when you think about it, it's a bit of a break from real hard-hitting competition, considering qualifying was about half an hour ago for these guys.
I mean, Charles-Etienne Boucher almost felt a little bit like weird when I suggested, do you go off and grab a quick snack between your races? But, you know, I never judge what a race car driver wants to do to get them in the zone. They all have their own little, you know, methods to really get themselves fired up. You could see a big stretch there from Logan Patcher as they all just roll and get ready to go. Ewan, it would be in some ways slightly unfair, I think, for me to put you on the spot to ask you for a winner. I guess what I will ask is lap 1 chaos. Big draft expected. What do you think we'll see on the opening lap?
I think we're going to see a clean opening lap. I've been impressed with the opening lap so far this season, and this turn 1's not exactly a huge stop down in towards turn number 1. It's turn 3, the first real big braking zone, I suppose, where there could be something, but I think it'll be a clean opening, and we're hoping so.
And again, for 25 minutes, the pace car's off and away, and we won't see it, so it's all on the control of drivers to really give us a rip-roaring affair. Styrian Mountains never disappointing at altitude. What will that do to the drivers in terms of mindset? Ready to go racing, 25 minutes on the clock, and ready to hit the halfway mark in the 2024 Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. Great jump from the front. Bouclador will lead us up the hill into turn 1 with a gap behind them as they battle for position around the outside. Vincent Trepinet trying to make it work on Etienne Leger. Now, drivers will take advantage of the runoff on the opening lap, take that 1x off track and just put it in the back of their mind. It's all about momentum and carrying that up the hill into the braking zone that then follows after that. Trepinet left on the outside, Leger still alongside, and this is where side by side between those 3rd and 4th and those on back, but not up front, 1 and 2 single file.
Yeah, exactly. That 1x on the exit of turn 1, probably worth it when you consider you absolutely have to be in the leading draft early on here. Great start from Charles-Etienne Boucher to get that gap. Logan Patchka the closest to him, but there's a bit of a gap further to that third group, if you like. It's a bit of side by side, but not too much as they realise the importance of staying with the leaders.
I think it was Curtis Fung for a second with the lights flashing in the brown number 10 machine around the outside down the hill. Now, you ask so many Formula One drivers about the dangers of being on the outside there. It's a corner where can very much be bullied and hung out to dry, and eventually you will want to be single file as you head into this middle sector and escort your way out of the slippery double left down into those final double rights. This is such a technical track in many ways, and already 1.3 seconds is going to separate second from third position. Boucher was worried about the draft when you squabble, when you fight side by side behind you, and it builds up advantages. The top two just need to keep this in mind. They've got a gap behind.
Yeah, and that might just factor into the thinking here. Do they work together in some sense to try and stay away from the rest of the field? Boucher hasn't exactly got alone here through the opening lap, but he has reduced the front group to 2 almost immediately here. Now, what's the thinking going to be behind as well? Are they going to sort of push Etienne Leger back in, sort of on terms again? Or are they going to all fight for third place here? As we ride on board with Justin Wren, we'll get a view as to what happens. There's defending, there's dives, there's side by side in this second group.
Fanned out almost 3 wide into the braking zone, all just trying to decide who would go deepest onto the brakes. And remember, as you crest up the hill, let gravity work in your favor. It seems as though the 718 of Justin Wren going to be able to hold on to the 8th position as Mobin Khan. Good qualifying effort from him, but he has dropped down to 10th. Lost 3 spots in these opening stages so far, and draft range does hover around 1.5 seconds. Once you get beyond 1.3, you lose the majority of the benefit, but 1.4, 1.5, that's where the gap's hovering right now. Those top 2 in real danger of pulling away and breaking away, and that will put into the mind of Trepigny, Meniz, and those behind, Ewan, they've got to get the hammer down as soon as possible.
They do. It's now or never almost. It's not one of those things that, oh, we can just catch them later on. You've got to be there, and at the moment they're really not. You can see the gaps behind as well. It's a pacey start to this race. You can always notice that when there's big gaps in the field here, especially in this type of racing. Look at the car lengths between the cars from 3rd to 7th or so. There's really quite a few forming, and that just shows you how pacey the race has been so far in one sense. But it shows danger for these guys mainly. Etienne Leger has to get on terms here and has to get assistance from Vincent Trepigny if he can, but it may be too late already. It's a second and a half now between 2nd and 3rd.
I mentioned incident points. You pick up 17 of those, and you can pick them up both through off-tracks and also contact. You have to serve a drive-through penalty, so you do need to be a little bit mindful now. They're jockeying for position. This 7th on back, Brody Goebel, Justin Rem, Giovanni Romano. No change as they filter off of the corner, but you can already see instantly 1 second is opened up to the grouping in front. And so instantly, if I'm Rem, I feel, okay, don't force the issue. Don't really try and make something happen. Robin Kahn going to lose another spot potentially, though, as Connor Bell up the inside and Kahn down to 11th.
And these are the sort of guys who are not really focused on trying to win, to be honest. They're looking to fight for any position that they can. And so that's why we're seeing so much here. I mean, that's even happening for 7th place now. Justin Rem trying to work his way through and has done ahead of Brody Goebel now. So that's another gap that's just formed. But I think Rem would be mainly disappointed with his qualifying today. He's had to work his way through quite a few drivers already.
You can see they're going to go side by side, though, into the penultimate corner. Don't really think this is what you want to be doing. Again, they've already dropped 1.5 seconds to those in front. Rem down the bottom right, Brody Goebel being thrown around into that sim rig as he's also talking on the radio. That's something, of course, that, Porsche Centres drafted the drivers. Not all of these competitors are racing on a Porsche Centre team with a driver they're usually a teammate with. That does not mean, though, they are not helping each other out. We've seen plenty of them acting as spotters and providing information, and it's been great to see the level of cooperation, knowing what is on the line for those Porsche Centres. Now battle up front, Logan Patcher closes, but doesn't close to try and make a move. He recognizes right now 1.5 seconds. Let's try and hold this gap and try and pull away.
Yeah, they are achieving that for the moment, the top two. Etienne Leger getting a bit of help from Vincent Trepigny as much as he can, but there's only so much you can do. Nearly 2 seconds from the lead already for Leger, and this is just the perfect situation for Charles-Etienne Boucher. He does have his most closest rival right with him, of course, but he's distancing pretty much everybody else behind, and when you add up the points for qualifying already, it's turning into, or looking like anyway, a good day so far.
Love the ability, of course, for us in the sim racing world to be able to look everywhere, to put cameras in real time, and also in the past when something happens to go and look at replays. It gives us the ability, of course, to look through the field, because I think right now, as much as we talk about breakaways building, starting to pack back up once again. Justin Rem is already close to almost 4/5 of a second to Enzo Johansson in 6th position, and so just look at this conga line, and I'd be quite curious to know if these drivers are actually building up more incident points, because when you run this close to one another, sometimes you find yourself just slipping and sliding that bit more, unable to see your reference points, and a drive-through penalty here, and it's a costly penalty.
It is costly, and you've got to make sure that you avoid it. I think the other thing when you're following someone like this as well is that if you're following someone who you think is maybe slightly quicker than you and you're trying to stay in the draft of, you can start to allow yourself to take some liberties with the track limits a little bit. Not so much so that you get a slowdown, but maybe so that you do start to pick up some of those off tracks, as you say. So it's not only about being unsighted when you're behind someone, but it's also trying to keep up with someone who you're not quite as quick as. We know how important it is to keep up with anybody that you can, and keeping that draft. The draft generally allows you to stay with people you're not quite as quick as, and so that can sometimes push you over the edge, and you can just begin to take some liberties with the limits, and that's you're on your way to a penalty at that point, really.
And if you keep racking up those incident points, well, don't worry, there is eventually a point, 25 incident points, where the race control system will say, no more, let's yoink you off the track instantly. And a track like this, it is worth keeping in mind that it may happen. We ride on board with Etienne Leger. We look at the focus on both his face as well as Vincent Trepigny, as the eyes dart around in the very dark room on the bottom corner of your screen. And see track limits. Traditionally, what do we say, Ewan? All 4 wheels inside of the white line, or at least one of the wheels?
Well, it's meant to be 2, I thought, but anyway, that's not being
Not at all.
Not followed today by any means. This is what happens, though, isn't it, at the Red Bull Ring? Everybody running very, very wide indeed. There would be a way to fix that, but it's the tracks, in my opinion, that have got to do a little bit more to help out on that front, in my opinion. A thin strip of grass around the outside of the circuits wouldn't go amiss.
Here we go for the lead, finally. Logan Patch has had enough. I think he knows that maybe Leger has a chance to close, but around the outside, momentum ramps off the corner, and Boucher holds on. The first time, though, that we get an inkling of a fight up front.
It is, and it's an interesting one as well, because Logan Patch, because they're not really wanting to help those behind, although maybe he does want to allow more drivers into this one so that Boucher can be overtaken by more people. But that's one I wasn't expecting, I've got to say, because even if you do start leading, surely Boucher will just come at you again on the next occasion.
Christian Muniz has lost some ground, so maybe that's also fed into the mind of that 911 machine, the Porsche Prestige entry that runs behind, that, if Leger and Trepigny close, it's only 2 more rather than the queue that had built up before. So these are, things that the drivers think about. And slightly earlier in our qualifying session, I said, let's go look at a lap from someone more qualified than us. I think the same thing often goes for strategy and what drivers want to do in races itself, isn't it, Ewan? We always say never trust a commentator's math. I also say just never trust a commentator in general.
Just generally what they say is a bit it can be questionable. Yes, suspect. Yeah, absolutely. So we're just speculating. And to be honest, I am very sort of stumped by what I'm seeing at the moment, to be honest, between these 2 leaders. Normally, I can give some sort of rationale in my own head as to why someone has done something, but I can't really on this occasion. As I mentioned, Logan Patchko has no real want in a normal day, in my opinion, to let these 2 try and catch up, but that's exactly what's happening. And that was very close.
They're fighting hard behind, as you can see them lights flash as well from, I think that's Enzo Johansson, as they work their way off the corner now. Christian Muniz rides in 5th, so this is where, of course, we were talking about those that had dropped off the back and really having troubles. You can see them dive down the hill. These are all, of course, valuable championship points. We made this comment slightly earlier, Ewan, when we were talking about the gap that the drivers have, so rather between points. First paying out 45, what was it, 5th paying out 24 or so. It's a big delta between them.
Yeah, it is. That's 21 points, by the way. That is true. So it's very important, and yeah, Alex Ellis pointing this out in Twitch about just making sure Boucher finishes lower down. I guess that is the case. It could be.
And we are experiencing some technical issues with Ewan, so apologies for that. We'll get him back in as soon as we can. So focused, though. 13 minutes left to go. Fight up front. Sees the 2 drivers. A 10th split between them. But Etienne Leger, last time by, only close. A 10th and a half. It's going to be close here, I think, in many ways to see how these drivers want to force the issue, but let's keep an eye on whether lights flash indeed. There they are, Logan Patcher from behind. Just reminding Boucher that he's there as they head up towards turn number 2 and well, turn 2, turn 3. I said I wasn't going to talk about corner numbers. Technically, turn 2 is the left-hand kink before you head your way into the braking zone. Now, that is true because motorcycles, when they come and race here, that's a proper corner for them to deal with. However, they've now added chicane that motorcycles use instead. So I think, Ewan, we're officially going to make the decision that has become turn number 2.
You can do. I mean, it's it's always up for debate, isn't it? I'm not entirely sure myself. I don't mind it being called turn 2, although it doesn't make a lot of sense in cars, does it? To have that. Does it really matter? Not really. But you know, these things are always argued about. There are far more suspect ones, I'll put it that way.
Road America. That's where we were most recently, wasn't it? That's the most suspect of them all. Back to the line as we'll close on half race distance complete, and they'll close to almost 3-4 wide in this fight behind this, all behind Michael Kondaccioglu. They've been separated out in this fight for 11th. Curtis Fung, Momin Khan, Ross Booth. Those behind and trying to work their way forward.
Yeah, it's top 10 looking even forlorn at the moment for someone in this part of the order, but nevertheless encouraging or interesting battles to watch, to be honest. It doesn't matter whether it's for the lead or not, but it's still exciting to watch. Let's see if there's anything into turn 3 as we were talking about here this time. Yes, Curtis Fung very late on the brakes down the inside, and try not to hit the first car in the train, which is always the battle.
Like you say, when you're trying to make deep sends, you're always trying to avoid just making bumper-to-bumper contact, because it will then really put you off in trying to get onto the power as well. Down the hill, Kondaccioglu sees behind him all that fighting. He's not too worried, at least for the time being. Ross Booth deep on the brakes, going to get past Curtis Fung. And what a move that was, just to get the pass done and to slide his car into position. And Fung not going to get the chance to try and fight back into the double left.
Well, he has a look, but no, doesn't decide to have a go down the inside, and it would lose an awfully lot of time if he did that. So deciding not to, staying in line and making sure that this draft train all joins up together nicely. It might allow some of those drivers a bit further to catch on again here.
So 10 minutes or so to go. I think that means, as we cross the line one more time and see that second and third still find themselves split by around 1.6 seconds. That, never trust a commentator's math. Knock on wood. 5-6 laps to go, something like that.
I
don't trust myself here.
No, I don't trust myself either, to be honest.
You're going to say you don't trust me.
Well,
that too.
both, actually. Yeah, it's going to be around there, isn't it? And not long, I think, is the main answer we're looking for here. Interesting that, again, Logan Pasca not doing anything of the sort that he did a few laps ago, where he did attack for the lead.
Yeah, but I think he's also recognized right now that still those drivers behind very, very close to closing, and off the corner. How close do you want to come? The answer to that question seemingly yes, because 946 of Enzo Johansson getting pinched almost with Justin Rem, and Brody Goebel thinks this is his opportunity to go the long way around. What fantastic fighting. Goebel backs out of it, blocks the line, the momentum of Giovanni Romano, cuts back underneath Johansson and gets the move done. The bright purple machine of Romano will try and slip forward as well, but now as the Mark Motors Porsche also tries to join the fun, one car maybe too many.
Maybe side by side through the double left-hander. You'd think the inside's going to prevail here for Johansson, but we'll see, and it will finally. But this is always the danger. If you get pushed out of line, you will continue to go down the group, and that's the real problem when you're at the front like this. That's the real peril in the final 10 minutes especially. There's not too much time left to remake those places.
I'm loving as well that these drivers are showing that racecraft, right? Because so often we talk about in sim racing sometimes drivers forcing the same issue over and over, not willing to try something different, and Brody Goebel saw the opportunity. Enzo Johansson ended up losing 3 subsequent spots as a result. Back up front, because we're into those closing stages, at some point, gap up front starting to build to those behind. The 911's got to go for it, but it's not this time. The margin had grown to almost 2 seconds as they crossed the line to complete lap number 10.
It's again looking like it's going to be between the front two. Pasca not attacking anymore, which means that these two can't really catch up. So, and these guys certainly can't. They're very much fighting for 5th place and maybe even 6th, to be honest. We'll see, though, down the back straight towards turn 4 again. Have to be late on the brakes here from Johansson to hang around the outside here into the right-hander, but late from Connor Bell means that, well, that was aggressive, wasn't it? But he makes his way through to 9th. Not that much space given, in all honesty.
No, and you know what's also interesting is the fact that you see the monitor on his right-hand side, so clearly set up with multiple monitors, but not using them all for the racing at hand. So maybe he can use the tactical excuse of I didn't see him, as Michael Schumacher once said to Juan Pablo Montoya all those years ago. At the front, it's still opening up as well. Last time by, it was 3/10. I wonder if Logan is just getting the bumper here and playing a bit of help. We've seen this often in the world of Daytona, for example, where the IMSA Esports Global Championship has seen bump drafting take its winners to victory lane. Logan's not close enough this time, though, to force the issue. I think what he's doing is just trying to time the run out of the opening corner to get a slingshot into the next braking zone.
It is all about timing, but has he got it here? I would say no. And to be honest, with the situation we're seeing between these two now, I would say that any opportunity PESCCC's got to try and take here. If there's an opening at any point, especially on the way up towards turn 3, try and use it as best as he possibly can to make the overtake here. It's not as easy as just drafting past someone. It's not a slam dunk overtake every time. You've got to, it's a little bit more work than that, and so getting in front is not the worst idea in these last 5 minutes.
Getting into those last 5 minutes as well. These are short races, 25 minutes, 15 years or older. Remember, competitors in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. And I do like that, Ewan, there's a ladder that is starting to be built, right? We have the younger drivers starting in this car with ABS traction control to help them out, learn some racecraft, and still compete with plenty of top-level drivers. And once you are 18 years of age, you feel a little bit more ready to go and dial in setups as well. Well, then you make your way to the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about building that ladder and making sure you're progressing, I guess, as a driver as well, and that's always great to see. It's great that we got so many Porsches in iRacing these days to progress through right up to the very top, of course, in sports car racing. So it's all about seeing that rising through the ranks, and we're certainly looking forward to that with just over 5 minutes left in this race. It's still these front two not exactly interacting with each other, to be honest.
And I did mention, by the way, you know, we've got a big blockbuster weekend coming up on Saturday. First, the finale of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland. So we're going to see 3 races, going to be a lot of fun. And then not directly after that, but a couple of hours after that, it is our season finale of the Porsche Esports Super Cup. And it's 2 mathematically still in contention there. It's down to Sebastian Job as well as Diogo Pinto. So join us for all of the fun. It should be wild. It should be entertaining. Should be something like this where it's for a top 10 finish right now. We've got plenty of action. Kondaccioglu, Johansson, Khan, Booth. I mean, look at that action down the hill as Curtis Fung sets them up from behind.
Yeah, something must have happened here because Johansson is in this battle now for 10th place, where previously he was in that group for 5th, so something has gone on here. It's all stacked up the group, and now everybody's seeing an opportunity for a top 10. A little bit wide through turn 6 for some of these guys now, very near the gravel actually, but and again bit deep into the next left-hander as well. But as soon as somebody new sort of enters the group in that way, it sets all kinds of things off, and now all of a sudden everybody is seeing the opportunity to get into 10th.
It's amazing. This is what these GT4s are all about, but contact made. Johansson and, well, Curtis Fung's the one that loses the most from it. Johansson's, I think, been instantly disqualified. I think he may have hit that incident limit that we were talking so much about. Down in towards turn number 1, or I should say up to turn number 1, Ross Booth, Mobin Khan, Arthur Chan, those left fighting now for 11th spot.
Yeah, it's a real diminished group compared to what we were just seeing. Unfortunate that the incident had to happen, but there were so many drivers diving for the same bit of tarmac that it was somewhat expected to a degree. Just unfortunate that we had to see a couple of the drivers fall by the wayside as a result. Changes for 5th place going on as well, by the way. Justin Rehm is trying to work his way forward in a real great race from him.
It's been an impressive drive, just one by one pick his way forward. It's now a 4th position. He's tried to work his way past around the outside on Christian Muniz. Watch Brody Goebel, though, really deep into the braking zone in the Porsche Centre Vancouver car, that white, green and yellow machine. He's alongside Giovanni Romano, a Porsche Centre, the purple Porsche Centre car as they flick it back to the left. Romano slots back into line. in front of them. Moniz and Rem still leaning on one another, but Rem with the inside, coming down to what should be 2 laps left to go. So they don't really have much time to continue this fight, and a great defensive lunge there by Moniz to hold on. Justin Rem will get turned on the nose of Brody Goebel.
He will. Whether that was his fault or not remains to be seen, but he was flashing the lights there at Moniz out of the left-handers. There's more contact here between Connor Bell and Brody Goebel, who will go for slides and will drop down, especially in the case of Goebel, who will be outside of the top 10 all of a sudden.
Let's, well, go ahead and start taking a look at some replays. It's going to begin with, well, what happened here? You can see that the 03 tries to turn in and instantly Johansson disappears. So that is the indication that there was the unfortunate issue for him in terms of hitting the incident point, not giving himself even an opportunity to come down for a drive-through. And I think maybe there also a recognition in the future that if you're in that situation, it's better to finish than to not finish at all. Front of the field though, 2 laps to go, become 1.5 now with 90 seconds left on the clock. Logan Patches losing ground to your race leader, Boucle d'Or, breaking clear in the closing stages.
Yeah, I've noticed this over the last couple of laps. Not only has PESCC not even been able to get close enough to make an overtake, it's barely getting to the stage now where he's barely clinging on at all. Charles-Etienne Boucher has shown his speed now and is beginning to pull away from the rest of the field, showing that it's not just a draft train around here at the Red Bull Ring. It's not all about waiting for that final lap and waiting for your moment to strike. It is sometimes as well about pure speed, I should say, and Boucher has certainly got that.
Haven't made it very fun at the front, let's be honest. That's right on board, by the way, with Brody Goebel as we sequence out of this replay. Bit of contact between Rem and the 97 of Christian Moniz, and then it was here as, I mean, let's be honest, Goebel's trying to pass off the track.
Yeah, I would say so. That was pretty aggressive, you could say. That's one word for it. And then there's more contact here into the penultimate turn. Goebel's actually the one that ends up going all the way around. I think he was hoping to just cling on to that slide and sort of drive through it, if you like, and just roll with it. But unfortunately for him, he went all the way around.
Well, I'm not surprised to tell you that Brody Goebel going to be probably summoned to the steward's office at the end of this race. I can tell you that is going to be investigated post-race as well. Not enough time for race control to make their decision. Brody Goebel's had to come down pit lane anyway, so not going to be a big drama for him. Moniz, Romano, side by side for 5th position. Final lap of this race. Moniz on the inside, the purple Porsche Centre car trying to get the power down. But Giovanni Romano, representing Porsche of London, is going to have to jink it to the inside, down into the next corner.
Well, is he even going to be shown the inside? It looks like there may have been an avenue there to go down, but Romano deciding that the outside is better. If he can hold it there, he'll get the inside for the 2 left-handers, but a slight bit of contact sets him off course a bit, and he won't be able to come back as a result. He's going to have to pull off a miracle almost to overtake in these final few corners now.
And, well, final few corners, not just for them, but up front as well, where Charles-Etienne Boucher looked stressed, I think, at the end of qualifying. Still, I think is in shock and awe at the fact that he's got 4 pole positions in a row. Now, it's not 4 wins in a row, but he's on a roll. He leads the championship. He extends the championship lead as well. A pump of the fist, a smile on the face, and the golden locks on top at the Red Bull Ring.
Great drive from him, nearly a second ahead of Logan Patchke. Held off and sustained the pressure actually that was really put onto him for a long period of time during that race. We've held that very well, and now he's been able to cross the line almost on his own and was, well, fully deserving of that race win.
See the rest of the drivers, some relatively close as well on their runs to the line, so clearly not everybody getting as easy a drive as Charles-Etienne Boucher. I say easy drive, I know he's probably not going to think it was that easy when we get the chance to chat with him. That's all the drivers across to see the checkered flag. Unfortunately, Justin Rem, Brody Goebel, Enzo Johansson, 3 drivers that will unfortunately be classified as DNFs, but they will get points having completed 75% of the race distance. Here's a look at the results. Porsche Lozon once again on top, and only a second. Margin didn't look very big, but lots of pressure was being built through the course of our 25-minute race. Logan Patcher sits in second. He's really shown us some impressive speed over the course of the season so far. Just waiting for maybe that bit of luck to go in his direction. And then Etienne Leger, third for him, and holding off the advances of Vincent Trepigny. Christian Meniz then sits in fifth after holding off Giovanni Romano, Connor Bell, and Michael Kondacioglu, along with Mobin Khan and Ross Booth through the rest of your top 10. And we should as well point out that Connor Bell, with 7 spots gained, is your Lego Play Well award winner here in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge from the Red Bull Ring. Arthur Chan, Arnaud Genet, and then Thomas Lavar, your top 13. Richard Quinn, Nicky Borovich, Curtis Fung, Tristan Hurl, Patrick Mason, Lyndon Swaby, and then Michael McLeod, your top 20. And then those 3 cars that I mentioned. Justin Rem, in fact, does get classified on your lead lap. Brody Goebel 1 lap down, and Enzo Johansson will be down in 23rd. So, tumultuous for some down the back, not so tumultuous up front, where once again it's the Golden Locks on top, and Charles-Etienne Boucher joins us once more. Charles, you sounded stressed after qualifying. Are you stressed now?
I mean, since the race is over, no, of course, but yeah, it was pretty stressful out there. Logan had a huge pace, and GG's to him. Honestly, if I hadn't saved up my off tracks, he would have most likely got me. That's pretty much how I got the win. I just played my cards right.
How did you feel the one time up into turn 2, turn 3, whatever you want to call it, when he had the look to the inside, he showed his nose? Did you want to really hold the lead? Were you thinking track position would be important?
I mean, I knew that going down the inside in that corner wasn't really good because, of course, the outside line had a lot more momentum, and since these cars are more momentum oriented, then he just didn't have the overlap. So after that, he flashed me the light, telling me to stay in line just because he didn't want to fight and get the people behind us into the pack and lose the second place or first place, whatever the race would have ended. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just played my card right. Congrats to him too. He had a huge pace, I'm not gonna lie.
We are now officially halfway through this season, and I think if you tot up the championship points, your championship lead is probably 70, 80 points, something like that. How are you feeling with 4 races still left to go and a week off after this?
Honestly, I'm pretty happy. It's been a pretty good half of the season. I hope it'll go like that on the second half. But you can never talk too early because it's a championship. You gotta bring in some good points and not die. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna try to do my best and bring home the championship if I can.
Well, 4 races to go. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time from the Circuit of the Americas. Congratulations once again, Charles-Etienne Boucher, a race winner in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada.
Thank you, boys. Talk to you later.
Always great to have a chat to Charles-Etienne Boucher. But, I mean, Ewan, 1 race in the books. Give me some of your thoughts, some of your reactions after, let's be honest, 25 minutes that at the front maybe didn't thrill us, but at the back we had plenty of entertainment.
Well, exactly. So I think that tells us a lot about what we're going to see in the second race. Things that surprised me certainly was the maybe lack of effectiveness of the draft. Everyone was searching for it during qualifying, making it look very, very important indeed. And I guess it was in that session, but it wasn't the key to victory, clearly. Boucher led from pretty much start to finish there and didn't take any draft at any point, didn't really need to do any overtaking, and as you say, didn't thrill us necessarily with that. But that's what was required. So are we going to see something similar in the Carrera Cup? We saw Lasciarita take pole by quite some distance. It's possible he can drive from flag to flag.
It sounds like track limits going to be a hot button topic. It's why we keep mentioning them here today. Don't go anywhere though. Here on Porsche's Twitch, 25 minutes of racing in the books. It's 40 minutes in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada coming up next from the Red Bull Ring.
Welcome back to episode 4 of Porsche Esports Tech Talks on Twitch. I'm your host, Joanne Bluen. We're gearing up for round 4 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge Canada with official timing partner Tag Heuer. Make sure to tune in right here on Twitch before each stream to catch up with some of Canada's most talented and recognized race car drivers so they can walk you through some key technical tips and tricks from their experiences in the world of racing. Today, we're going to jump into a Porsche 911 at the Porsche Ice Experience with Ben Cooper, driving instructor and world karting champion, to get his perspective on the importance of the first corner.
But it's the famous saying there, you can't win a race in the first corner, but you can definitely lose it. So that just show how important it is. You know, you're better off erring a little bit on the side of caution in the first couple of corners, because like I said, you can definitely lose a race in the first few corners, and I have, and that's the way you learn. My biggest tip would be don't do anything risky. Risk over reward. So as you're driving around, you have to judge whether what you're thinking of doing is worth the risk compared to the reward you're going to get. So for example, if you're in a train of 5 or 6 cars and you're the 4th or 3rd car in line and you go for a move around the outside, the chances are you're probably going to gain 1, but more likely you're going to lose 2 or 3 spots. So yeah, risk over reward would be my main thing.
Thank you so much for that, Ben. This is critical insight, especially for this series where we have a large field of cars competing. As you may or may not know, the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge Canada 2024 season spans over 8 rounds and takes competitors to the world's most exciting yet challenging circuits. Who will be victorious in the Red Bull Ring in Austria? This picturesque high-speed track rewards drivers that can maintain speed and momentum through the corners. Who's going to take the top step? I'm Joanne Bluen. See you in the next episode of Tech Talks on Thursday, April 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on Twitch. Don't you miss it.
The sun continues to set here in the Styrian Mountains, but the action only continues to intensify. Welcome back to Porsche's Twitch and to the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. New for 2024, Porsche brings the 992 Cup car into its own competition, and boy, what fun it has proven to be so far. Our Junior Kenki Party joined alongside, as ever, here on Porsche's Twitch today by Ewan O'Leary. And I think, Ewan, in some ways, that first race, track limits being a talking point, seeing the drivers have to feather their way around some certain tricky situations, it was interesting. But that was all with a car with ABS, traction control, and only 25 minutes of racing.
Exactly, it feels like everything we've just seen is going to be amplified a little bit by a faster car, a longer race by a quarter of an hour, and just the second race of the evening as the sun, dipped below a little bit the horizon, and we see slightly cooler temperatures, maybe, in fact definitely 33 degrees down on the circuit for whatever reason. It's really cooled up very quickly. So it feels like everything is going to be amplified a little bit, and hopefully this time we get a bit more of a battle for the lead.
Of course, you see the time of day making its change as well. We were racing, qualifying, I should say, much earlier in the afternoon, and so the sun is set. Track temperature reflects that as well. Ready to go racing, though. And remember, 25-minute race for the Sprint Challenge. 40 minutes of not just managing the track limit conversation, whatever you want to really call that, but as well, maybe more insignificantly, try to manage these tires as well, even with the cool temperatures. Running down trackside to where, of course, defending champion Antoine Lacharite qualified on pole by 0.3 of a second. A dominant margin in a field as close as this, and Ian Gagnon-Renault going to line up alongside and try and challenge in towards turn number 1. Andrew Caron, Porsche Centre Reef Sud, and Gregory Hoverson, Porsche of Halifax, line up on row 2, with Giuliano Romagnolo and then Christopher Cook in the Porsche Centre Kitchener-Waterloo and Porsche of London entries lining up behind. Of course, Porsche Lozon trying to go 2 for 2 today and extend their lead potentially in the championship. Alex Ellis and Bergeron for Porsche Centre Oakville and Porsche Centre Quebec behind, and then Adrian Pullock for Mark Motors Porsche in those distinctive purple and green colours, alongside the Porsche Centre Vancouver car that has some fans in the chat, and Josh Manalo from 10th. Blake Townend and Savio Panicha 11th and 12th positions, with 13th for Jonathan Houlet, 14th for Josiah Farrow, and then Alexandra Lacasse and Rory Windrum 15th and 16th positions. Valentin Crusoe and Dylan Cole make up the top 9 rows, and 1.5 seconds split these cars so far, with Matt Murphy and then Spencer Reitzma making up your top 20. Luke Cicerone, Richard Hibbs and Luke Scavus make up the rest of your field as they get ready to go. Instructions now just to head down trackside and to get their final marching orders. There's an intensity, Ewan, that starts to build as these drivers sit on the grid and they wait. Nerves sometimes start to rear their heads as well.
It will be a nervous moment here, just sat before the left-hander of turn 7, waiting to get rolling for what will be a very short formation lap. In some ways a blessing, can't get too nervous, can't let the nerves get on top of you in such a short amount of time, but it isn't nice to sort of ease your way in if you're one of those drivers who likes to settle in with a formation lap. You don't get to do that here. It's a quick run to the line and a very intense start coming up.
And of course, we'll be able to look through the cameras of plenty of these drivers over the course of this race, but you can see them ready to go. Plenty of them in triple screen setups. Of course, we have a handful in VR, and as we saw with Brody Goebel, some in motion as well. It was a relatively interesting start to our first race of the evening. Not too much chaos on the opening lap. Will we see the same, Ewan?
I think so. I think this is one of those circuits where you can get through nicely early on. It's later on in the race where we had to worry in the sprint challenge, and may have to here too.
Just wait now for the drivers to see the pace car off and away and to enter into that starting zone. 40 minutes on the Tag Heuer clock, ready to rumble in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. It's the back half of the season that lies in front of us after this, but a trip to the Styrian Mountains has seen Antoine Lacharitte lead us away from pole, and a big margin up into the opening corner. Look at the send from behind. Andrew Caron really taking it to Ian Gagnon Renault as they filter off the opening corner, and look at that sight. They're 2x2 running in the rearview mirror of your race leader on the climb up in towards turns 2 and 3. Heavy braking zone with gravity on your side. Be brave, be bold, but know the outside lets you get off the corner that little bit better. Gagnon Renault gonna get bullied though. Look at Caron get the exit, the momentum, and second place to his name.
And look at the gap that Lacharitte is getting as a result. It's important fighting because both Caron and Gagnon Renault want to be there, but already 1 second for the reigning champion as he makes his way down towards the right-hander at turn 4. Still side by side between Alex Bergeron and Alex Ellis for 6th position as they all try to tuck into line. Just what can they do about the race leader here? Well, these two are not intending to do anything. Still fighting it out through the two left-handers.
And with cold tyres, what they're doing is holding each other up. There's no question about that right now. You can see in front of them already a couple of car lengths starting to open up as Ellis going to hold on to the position, it would seem. Christopher Cook in the Porsche of London machine is behind, as down into the penultimate corner they will go, with the gap now having grown to 1 full second between 5th and 6th position. Look at focus on both of their face as well, and already look how wide they're running. I wish in some ways we had access to that tire, to the off-track information, to the incident points, as chaos behind. Alexandra Lacasse has made it 4 wide as cars filter off the final corner.
And that came off as a result of somebody getting a big slide through the final turn there. They corrected it by slamming on the brakes and straightening out again, but it's caused chaos here, and it may have caused that incident up in front for the 34 car as well.
Savio Panicha ends up in a very uncomfortable place through turn 1, but somehow, well, still running with 22 cars of our 23 in this leading pack. You can see them play bumper cars off the corner. It's not unexpected with how stop and start that braking zone really can be, but it's going to be Blake Townend in front of Alexandra Lacasse. In front of them, Dylan Cole and Josiah Farrow going to be door to door heading down into the braking zone at turn 4. It's the long way around for the 71 machine of Dylan Cole in the Porsche Centre Richmond car, but Josiah Farrow on the inside. Porsche Centre West Island able to work forward.
Yeah, it's so important to get what you can from these opening moments, because any passes that come after this now that we're in single file and we're sort of into the rhythm of the race, it's going to cost you so much time. Not that it doesn't off the start, but it is easier to get places without losing as much time when you're on this opening lap or two. Now that we're into the feel of the race, into the string of things, into the rhythm, it's more difficult. It costs you more time, especially through the middle sector at the Red Bull Ring. It's really important to take the right lines through there, and so when you're not, i.e. when you're side by side, you do end up losing a lot of time.
You're now 2 laps in the books, 40 minutes of racing. I think an estimated 25, maybe 26 laps, depending on the tempo set up front, the pressure that your race leader Antoine Lacharite has to deal with from Andrew Caron behind. Let's go back, I guess, at some point and look at what happened on the opening laps of the race. Only a couple of real moments of drama to talk about, but given that they are, at least for the time being, behaving themselves, not causing any commotion amongst one another. Ewan, believe it was Blake Townend, the car that got a little bit sideways, and then from there, that's what set off the chaos.
Yeah, so the driver behind has to go sort of around and off the circuit almost to make it 4 wide. Obviously, not really expecting that. Not likely to give someone space on the outside, I suppose. Everybody else dives for the inside. It causes a 4 wide moment. Just up ahead, it's completely on his own, actually. 34 car entirely into the wall because of the curb.
Curbs that I think in these cup cars you do need to be quite careful of. They can very much, as we saw right there, a very visual depiction, throw you for a loop. But outside of those 2 incidents, don't think there's really too much else to talk about as we will dive down through the final sector to end lap 3, again, of an estimated 25 or 26. You're only allowed 17 incident points, so 17 off tracks if you were to make a correlation, less if you're making wheel-to-wheel contact, before you get to serve a drive-through penalty. 25 is when you get yoinked from the race. So, Ewan, there's not much margin for error, especially through the final corner for Valentin Crusoe.
There is one error, yes, through the final turn. It's really on a knife's edge here. You've got to be so careful in terms of not making mistakes, and so it's so quick at the same time. It's a very difficult balance to strike. This is Crusoe. He's going to hit the back of the car in front and spin around. Thankfully out of the way of everybody else, but not ideal for Valentin Crusoe, who is now 22nd.
I guess that's the one benefit of the runoff here. At least you've got something to spin off into if you do have a slight mistake. Here's the battle, though, for 4th. Romagnolo, pressure from Hoverson, jinks back to the inside and tries to send it under the brakes. Gets it stopped in time, slides his way on forward and rips 4th away from Romagnolo. Look off the back of his machine, though. Ellis Bergeron. Those are the next 2 cars in line. If Romagnolo can hold them off, he can settle back in, and I think you were kind of alluding to it, weren't you, Ewan? Save tyres and then push at the end of the race.
Well, is that going to be the strategy that works out? I mean, with these lower temperatures now, I'm slightly beginning to wonder where the tyres are going to be at the end if you were to go all out. It's only dipping further here. We're past 6 p.m. virtual standard time. We're into the low 30s. That's not so much temperatures where you really have to worry about tyres as much as they were even in qualifying earlier on, and maybe the Sprint Challenge cars were earlier on as well, although they didn't seem to have tyre troubles, to be fair. Are we at a stage now in terms of temperature where you can actually go all out from start to finish and not worry?
Slight correction, by the way. Apparently, they've given the drivers a bit more leeway, and it's 27 incident points here. But, 10 more incident points for 15 more minutes of racing. If you're really close, we heard that the drivers at the front are going to weaponize them at the end, right? Ration them early and then save them to try and push. You could find yourself in trouble. Ellis to the inside of Romagnolo. 2 very similar liveried cars. They make contact as well, and the scramble off the corner sees Christopher Cook alongside Romagnolo, but not able to take advantage. It's going to be Manalo, the one that now tries to sweep on through. One moment, couple of different shake-ups of position.
Yeah, that was all into turn 3, very messy. If it goes wrong, you're coming from quite a low speed to get back up to speed again, if you see what I mean. So it's going to lose you a lot of time. This is what happens in these kind of groups, though. It's all behind Gregory Hoefson, or at least it was. And when everybody stacks up like this, they're almost forced into a side-by-side, into these big braking zones like we've got at turn 3. And moments like that can happen. It's all very close here in the midfield. I mentioned this in qualifying that it was going to be, and it's proving to be in the race.
Right on board with Christopher Cook, who's in the left-hand side on our webcams. Manalo to his right. See both drivers using gloves. I'm keeping an eye as well. You mentioned it was interesting to see, I forget who it was, but they had the hands on the shifters the whole time. Now, I think Manalo's one that takes the fingers off, rests them on the wheel normally. Christopher Cook, though, on the other hand, is doing what you disagree with, Ewan.
Yeah, why would you keep your fingers over there? There's no point.
I mean, I guess you might need a shift.
Well, yeah, but move when you need to shift then. I don't understand. It's all different preferences, though, isn't it? I like to have the sort of full grip on the wheel, and I'm not the only one. But some people, like to have that finger over the shift if you need it. So, it's just different ways you're comfortable. There's nothing conscious that anyone's doing.
Yeah, you say nothing conscious that anyone's doing. Let's go back up front to, well, what is closing for the lead, but initially, it's right on board with Ian Gagnon. Leans a lot. Renault, you can already see, we're on a straight. He's already leading, Ewan.
He's leading so much. That's not a straight, for example, by the way. But anyway,
come on, it's basically a straight. Are you going to give it a corner number now?
Not quite, but it's part of the previous corner, I would argue. Anyway, he does lean a lot, doesn't he? And I heard you and Lewis talking about this a few weeks ago about leaning while playing video games. Not necessarily always driving, but it is a thing. Something that I never did, by the way, but he's been known to lean off camera. Has Ian Gagnon Renault?
Oh no, he does lean off camera. To the point where Charles-Etienne Boucher, our race winner from the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, a couple of moments ago, he's made some fun of Ian Gagnon Renault in the past, in some other series that we've done. And at some point, we're going to have to try and convince him to do it once more. Let's focus, though, on the leaders just momentarily, because it has closed, right? Lasciarite's, I don't want to say feeling pressure, but he's got the rear view mirror now a little bit more full of Andrew Caron. And, given that we've got only 10 minutes complete in this race, I don't think either driver is going to be worried too much about where they lie. I reckon, though, given that they're quite equal in pace, we might actually be in for a wheel-to-wheel fight.
I'm hoping so. It's good to see early on here that Caron is driving well and he's keeping Lasciarite in check, because I really thought that we were going to see a runaway victory for the reigning champion here. That's not been the case. Caron is really quick in the race, as it seems, and that's very encouraging. He needs to make sure that Lasciarite doesn't get some momentum going here, otherwise he's going to end up the bridesmaid in this series again.
Yes, let's talk about that record, right? Let's go back to 2021. When we introduced the Cup car for the first time into this championship. In 2020, it was all GT4 when Brandon Hawkin would become our inaugural Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge champion. But Sueli Almeida was our Cup Series champion, Cup class champion in 21. Andrew Caron, second. 2022 Cup class. Phil Bouchard, our series champion. Andrew Caron, second. 2023, of course, the man in the bottom right corner of your screen, Antoine Lasciarite, season champion, Racine Fazui second, and Andrew Caron third. A fourth year where it sits right now, Ewan, where he's in the mix, he's in the hunt, and for him to already have finished 3 consecutive championships up there tells you a lot. He's just waiting for that momentum, that form to kick him on and really make him the championship favourite.
And it's not like he's finished second or third behind the same driver winning the series all the time. In my opinion, that's easier to take if there's someone who's constantly winning and you're not quite as good as them and they keep beating you. But it's different drivers who keep finishing ahead of Andrew Caron. So where does he even direct his anger? Who does he complain about for that? It's just the world, I guess, that's against him almost in terms of winning this series. It's a remarkable record that he'd really like to put right, but he's got to make sure that Lasciarite doesn't get this momentum going, because while coming into today he had 34 points, those can go away very quickly.
Yes, I mean, again, the difference between first, second, third, fourth is quite big in this championship at the end of the day. There's no ways about it, right? And so that's, I think, part of why consistently being up the front, that's all Caron will really be hoping to do in these early stages. We'll focus not just up front, though, because they're going to keep each other close. We're not going to have to look away from them for 27 minutes, you'd think. But also those behind, Ellis, Bergeron, Romagnolo, Manalo, Cook, they're still holding relatively close. You've got Jonathan Houlet, Adrian Paluk, Josiah Farah. I mean, the list can go on and on in terms of where these cars could all stack on up. And given that we've still got plenty of time to go, I wonder who's feeling the most aggressive, who's also dialed their setup in most for these cooler conditions that we've got now.
Well, that's the difference in this series. You can make these changes in the sprint challenge. It's just about driving around it, driving to adapt. But you can be a bit more technical in terms of adapting in this series. How can you deal with that with the setting sun, setting-ish, as much as it can in the summer at this time of day? But the temperatures are certainly noticing that. We've seen that we're down into the low 30s now, as we've already noted. And it's about just coping with that as much as you can. Little aggression actually here at the moment.
Again, middle part of the race, it settles in often, doesn't it? A motor race, much like a bike race. We don't necessarily really have the same lead breakaway peloton as maybe we would have, because it's a much larger, bigger group behind. But so I often find that there are a lot of similarities between motor racing, where you don't actually have to use your physical energy to make something happen, and bike racing, where it's all about your physical energy and making something happen.
I wonder how long we can pedal along this cycling analogy.
At that. So funny of you.
Sorry, that's a thumbs down that from me. But anyway, it's true though. It is true. I feel it's less apparent here maybe than it has been in some previous times. Although we do have still a pretty big group, I guess, in the midfield that you could associate with that analogy. But it seems less apparent here, because to me the draft is not quite as strong as I was expecting. It is creating good racing though. Battle for Fifth seems to be back on here.
Yeah, I definitely feel as though Alex Bergeron, king of the dirt on iRacing, but also a competitor that's raced across all disciplines on the World Championship ladder, switches it back underneath, and that's beautifully judged. You have the inside down into the next braking zone as well, if he can be brave and stick it down with no, ABS to help him either. Let's not forget these drivers have got to get it wound down all by themselves, and Bergeron does go a little bit tentative. Ellis tries to stick himself along, but contact. Ellis shoved out and into the kitty litter. Can Josh Romagnolo take advantage? The answer is Romagnolo will switch his way to the inside and fight his way forward to 5th. Manalo to 7th. Ellis down to 8th.
And it's the aggression that is so apparent in this group. The fight for 5th place, so fierce even in the first third of the race. We're getting towards half distance now, but it's so fierce fighting here for the lead. Here goes Bergeron again, looking to the inside for the penultimate corner. Romagnolo defends, and so it will be Bergeron to the outside, looking back at the inside for the final corner, and then setting yourself up. All it takes is that one move that sets off a whole group of battling.
And, we're going to get it into turn 1. Look how much they're pinching as well behind. Ellis has gone to the inside of Manalo. Big lunge from him under the brakes. He will get it done. And watch as off the track goes Bergeron. He will get swarmed. Romagnolo's grabbed 5th. 3 wide is building into turn 3. Just watch where does Manalo go in the Porsche Centre Vancouver car. Can't even go down the middle. Thinks better of it. It's going to be Cook in the Porsche of London car that goes deep under the brakes the long way around. Follows Ellis through. Great racing. Cook makes a mistake. Drops back down the running order. All as they lose track of those in front.
It was contact with Alex Ellis that forced Christopher Cook to have that half spin, and not Alex Ellis, I think it might have been Manalo, but it was definitely contact at turn 3. Bergeron and Ellis still can't leave each other alone. Bergeron will now get through, you would have thought, if he can just hold the inside to the next left-hander, but he can't. And Alex Ellis will be back to the inside for the next 2 turns. It's a good run around the outside, though, from Bergeron, and that could be 6th place. It's never quite sure in this group. You're never fully sure that you've made the move. But now, finally, Alex Bergeron is through into 6th place, and Romagnolo is off and away.
It's crazy to think as well that these drivers are maybe fighting even harder and even closer than what we saw in the Caymans, where we knew draft was actually going to be more important. So this is the replay from up above. Oh, there you can see just tagged in the left rear by the Porsche of Vancouver car. And so that is going to probably mean Race Control's going to take a look, and I can tell you that they've already had to take a look at a couple of things here and there. Alex Ellis has been under investigation once. No further action for things at the start. He's under investigation once again.
And we'll hope to avoid penalties, because that will set you back in a field like this when it's so close. any seconds added to your race time or whatever the penalty is going to be is really going to hurt you in terms of losing positions. As the leaders just go for our shot there, absolutely nose to tail again, Antoine Lacharite and Andrew Caron. Are we getting a similar situation to the Sprint Challenge where the second place driver evidently at the end, in hindsight, was clinging on actually? It doesn't feel like that this time round, but it didn't feel like that last time either, so we'll see in the closing moments whether Caron is clinging on right now or whether he's got something more to give.
I mean, there's another way of looking at it, I guess, right? Which is that maybe with Charles-Etienne Boucher and Logan Patcher, Logan was just really pushing as hard as he could, and Charles having the advantage of, you know, a bit more references in front of him, being able to avoid the off-tracks, just was waiting. And maybe Andrew Caron's in a similar spot, but it doesn't look like he's running as wide, so could, just never know, he's setting himself up quite decently. I think in some ways I feel, and a lot of racing and figuring out, you know, what's happening in terms of the race is about feel. Ian Gagnon Renault's almost leaning out of his rig, but Gregory Hoverson is right on his rear bumper, and in some ways is actually the one that I think may feel like he's quick enough to leapfrog and try and close those top two. Even if he comes to the outside as Gagnon Renault covers the inside in his Porsche Centre North Toronto entry, Hoverson's going to try and switch it back and watch this off the corner as well. A great drive for him.
Well, as he got to the inside, as long as he's alongside, then he'll have the inside line by the time they get to the braking zone of turn 4. It looks like he does have that overlap. So here he goes. Later on the brakes, Gregory Hoverson should have this. It's such a long way round with the camber of the road there, and Gagnon Renault gets a bit of contact anyway, puts his left arm up in complaint, I guess. Nothing going to be done about that, I wouldn't imagine. Hoverson through into third.
It almost gives him a shot to the bumper in through the first of the two lefts, but it looks clean to me. The margin now 3 seconds, though, so I wonder if Gregory Hoverson can claw that back down with, we're going to hit half race distance, so half race time done this time by. And your race leaders holding each other very, very honest. Ewan, sometimes commentators like to stir up drama. Keep an eye on the right front. Ooh, that was very wide for one of your cars. The right front of these cars. No, it looks okay from this angle. I thought from a couple of different perspectives, your race leaders who have been quite aggressive in some ways over the curb have sometimes looked like there's damage, but maybe I'm just seeing things.
Well, if they've both been doing it, then surely they'd both have the damage, so we can't really tell by looking at them both, I wouldn't have thought. Does it look normal?
It looks
now
pretty
you're making me
normal
just
to
see
me.
things.
No, that's the problem. I think I managed to convince myself into seeing something.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've both managed it now.
I managed to get you following me, didn't I?
I think so. Yeah, it's nothing major, nothing to worry about really, is it? Even if there is something going on there, it's just the way that the front end looks on those two cars. It was Gagnon Renault who went very wide, it seems, through that corner and got to slow down as a result.
What even happens here? Ooh, I mean,
right.
That looked pretty nasty as well. Looks so innocuous, but then just suddenly the balance of the car pitched itself and it wasn't necessarily very comfortable. So that gap now for third and fourth grows. Hoverson going to try and close in the Porsche of Halifax entry, but let's focus back on this little grouping. Romagnolo's been caught by Bergeron, Ellis, Manalo, Ulay, Cook. That's the cars running 5th through 10th position in our shot right now.
Yeah, interesting that there's been a split here. So I thought Alex Ellis would easily be able to keep up with Alex Bergeron actually in this group, but that's not been the case at all. And so Ellis is now the new cork in the bottle, if you like, with Manalo, Ouellette and Cook just behind, fighting for 7th place in the field. So that's interesting to me. I mean, maybe if Romagnolo and Bergeron start to fight, they'll be dragged into this too. They're only a second ahead.
Here's the look from Josh Manalo. He looks very, very focused right now, but gets a pretty good exit. I gotta say, Alex Ellis in front's gonna be a bit of a sitting duck if he doesn't really find the right line to cover up into the next braking zone. You can see Ellis on the right side of the track, left side of the shot, and Manalo not going to be able to get deep enough under the brakes, and Ellis will hold on to that spot right now. Gritted teeth for Josh Manalo.
Yeah, and needs it in such fierce battle here. Oh, wow, that was close. But bravery, I suppose, from Alex Ellis there, who could have crossed Manalo, and if that went wrong, he would have been straight into the wall. So that's why it was pretty brave. But this is intense racing. This is what it's like to be a part of one of these fights in the Carrera Cup. Really intense stuff, exciting to watch as well. We've had some great battles so far.
Race control has come down with its determination on Alex Ellis, by the way. No further action. And so, second time today, Ellis has gone in front of the stewards, at least virtually. Second time, nothing has come of it. Also, Christopher Cook under investigation. We'll see if anything ends up coming from that. In fact, no, already the update. No further action. Race control working nice and quickly here with 16 and a bit minutes to go. It's opened up at the front suddenly between Lasciarite and Andrew Carone as they head back out of turn number 1. I wonder if this is the point where that incident limit starts to kick in, and if drivers' rationing can start to really kick it into another groove.
It does feel like if you were to be rationing here at this stage and you were forced into a period of the race where you cannot afford to get many, if any, off tracks out on the circuit, that would take away from your speed a little bit. Not because you were extending before and that was contributing to your speed, but I feel like there's a bit of nervousness that comes around those final few off tracks. You know when you're getting close, and so not only are you driving further within the track limits even stricter, that will slow you down, but I think the nervousness of knowing that also slows you down a little bit, even subconsciously.
Have you ever, by the way, seen headphones that sit as tall on your head as Andrew Carone's?
Well, no. To be honest, I get quite uncomfortable if it's not attached to the top of my head, actually.
So I think what we figured out is he's got two bands. There's one that does sit on top of his head, and then there's an outer band as well. But that, in my opinion, is the Porsche 911 GT3 spec headphone. Anyone that's seen a Porsche 911 GT3 in person knows that the rear wing, it's huge, of course, has to do a fair amount of aero work, and so it sometimes looks quite big, and that is the GT3 configuration on display from Andrew Carone. So 15 minutes to go. We'll keep it as keep our eyes on the fight up front if they are going to keep us entertained, but at least based on the sprint challenge, maybe not. Might have to be the mid-pack where things continue to build. Romagnolo, look at Bergeron still putting the pressure on.
Yeah, and I wonder whether he's laying off fighting for now so that he can stay away from the group of 4 and maybe more who are fighting behind, because Bergeron is certainly not slow. Right behind Romagnolo here into turn 3, no way through, but there's a bit of an agreement going on in that second group as well. Maybe we can catch those two up front to maybe get a top 5 here, so a brief hiatus in hostilities maybe between those quartet of drivers for 7th place.
You don't want to say that. I mean, we're enjoying what we're seeing, but it might also just, make sense championship-wise. None of these drivers, of course, are racing with each other. They're all representing their own Porsche Centres, representing themselves. They may have some help in their ears, though, and giving them some feedback, some advice, and trying to coach them through various situations. May also be their respective counterparts racing in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. So never know exactly what helps they're going to get. A lot of racing is also mental, especially here in the sim racing world, where we managed to throw away all those physical things that will really push our mental focus to run astray. Now, that was a wide line, wasn't it, for your race leader?
Was a little bit. I wonder whether he's using up a couple of off tracks because he knows that Carone is going through a difficult patch in this race. Maybe I've got to take advantage of this as much as possible, and so take a few liberties with this, try and drive home an advantage, get out of the slipstream, and then tone it back again for the last part of the race.
It's 1 full second as we close on 10 minutes left to go. That's still a decent chunk of time left in this race if we're being fair. I think we've got 10 laps as well, based on the estimate I've got in front of me. Gregory Hoverson's not really done enough to close.
I wouldn't have thought it's 10 quite. We're at 13 minutes to go.
It's apparently what we've got.
Well, that's ambitious.
I trust the timing screen in front of me over my own math, if I'm being honest, because my math's usually wrong. Back over to Bergeron, jinx to the inside, doesn't force the issue.
No, probably sensible. If that was a late move on the brakes there, it could have ended in disaster, and I think Bergeron's getting a little bit worried here, sort of caught in two minds. Do I go through on Romagnolo and try and drive out an advantage because I reckon he thinks he can do it, or do I sit behind and hope that Romagnolo is quick enough to keep us at bay from that group, led by Alex Ellis.
Yeah. I feel like Alex Ellis is maybe the one that could drop off the back in this group as well. So 12 minutes to go. I think decisions have to be made up and down through the field. 4 races will be in the books in about 12 minutes time as well. 4 races left to go. Interesting schedule lies ahead of us. A trip to the Circuit of the Americas, Spa-Francorchamps, Road Atlanta, and then the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. I know someone commented in the Porsche Twitch chat that it's not really a street circuit, it's more a park, but I don't know how you can't call that a street circuit, Ewan. It's got, you know, walls pretty close, not much runoff, of course, and bumpy. Bumpy, bumpy, bumpy.
Yeah, I think that the walls are the thing that you first think of, isn't it? Wall of Champions, so famous, of course, for collecting so many drivers down the years at the Montreal street circuit. And I'm also, yes, going to call it a street circuit because part of it is on public roads. I don't believe all of it is. It's one of those hybrid ones, I think, from my basic knowledge. And but anyway, it doesn't matter for me. If there's a part of it on public road, it's a street circuit because that often sort of creates the atmosphere of it. And anyway, even if it's not, it's been built up to be so close to the walls. One of those circuits where you can't take many liberties with the walls, and you can find yourself in trouble very quickly.
And I'm trying to remember, but isn't technically, we've got, you know, plenty of new tracks in the world, but aren't they technically building purpose? They're building roads for the purpose of building races around them in parts of the world nowadays. So, you know, we are really, you know, trying to blur the lines between what is a street circuit and still a purpose-built facility. So, you know, at least it's Circuit Gilles Villeneuve's great, but if iRacing wants to add another Canadian road course, Toronto, please and thank you. The IndyCar fan in me is definitely not speaking. Up front, 1.3 seconds. Blink of an eye, race can change, and Andrew Caron finds himself dropping back from the leader.
Yeah, it's been quite a few blinks of an eye now that Andrew Caron has spent outside of the draft range. He's continuing to lose time. He just doesn't quite have the speed of Antoine Lacharite, and I wonder what sort of effect this is going to have emotionally for Andrew Caron, because he's starting to lose momentum in this series after winning the first 2 rounds of the season, losing out to Lacharite, coming second at Road America 1 week ago was not ideal. Is he going to experience it again and see the momentum going away from him? It's worrying times for a driver who's been so close before.
In terms as well, right, of qualifying, already by getting pole, Lacharite had gotten an additional 5 points over Caron, who qualified down in 3rd. So that gap comes down from 34 to 29. Let's say they finish 1 and 2 as they sit right now, which I think is a realistic thing to say. 9 and a bit minutes left to go. 7 extra points get stripped away. So now suddenly that margin's at 22 points with 4 rounds left to go. It's not big by any means, and we've got some interesting tracks, right? I mean, we are going to talk so much about Circuit Gilles Villeneuve being, you know, a street-type circuit, what that means, but Road Atlanta's not one that I think traditionally, Ewan, we're going to talk about much passing outside of Turn 10. Spa's one where we can see plenty of fighting, and I'll be honest, Circuit of the America, one of the most underrated tracks in global motorsport. I think you either love it, or you don't know how to drive it, and so you hate it.
That's quite harsh.
But true.
Which side do you fall on that?
I once won a league race there by 55 seconds. So which side do you think I fall? I love that track. It's great.
Who were you against?
It wasn't a bad field. I was just in a Ford GT. This was back in the GTE days. And I just couldn't get to grips with the Porsche at that time. I wasn't good enough for a rear-engine car like that. But yeah, whatever reason, Circuit of the Americas. If you can find the apexes, it's a great track.
Maybe you're not as bad of a driver as I think you are in my head.
I was in a top split, and I qualified 1 second off of Josh Rogers in the 12 hours of Sebring on 19 minutes of practice.
You don't like to mention it either.
Never mentioned it before on a broadcast.
Well, I would, to be fair, so I don't blame you. It's not one that it depends what car I'm in, to be honest with you. whether I enjoy it or not. I think in some of these slower cars, I'm thinking of the real fast ones, like maybe the Porsche hypercar wouldn't be a good idea around Circuit in the Americas. I'm not sure I would enjoy it anyway, but these types of cars, these sort of slower style of cars, certainly compared to them, might be a bit more enjoyable around Circuit in the Americas, and it's certainly proven itself in terms of its racing credentials in the recent past too.
Absolutely. I agree with you there, and I think everything can go and have a fun race there. It would seem 4 and 2 wheels aligned on that one. Down the inside, that was a big look from Valens Gruzeau. They are knocking 10 bells out of one another. Luke Ciccarone, Savio Panicia, Dylan Cole, they're all in this little grouping that we see. And so 7 minutes ago, sun continuing to set and to make probably visibility quite interesting for the drivers. No real gaps closing in the top 4, Ewan, but look at this train still behind Romagnolo.
This is all going to kick things off now. I think that they were sort of waiting for this moment. Well, Bergeron certainly was anyway. I believe he's quicker than Romagnolo here, and so he's finding and fighting for his way through. No look down the inside that time though. Romagnolo painting the white line on the right hand side there. Bergeron has to try and cut back as best he can, but he did it a bit too early actually. Had to steer out of the corner again and then go back for a second bite of the cherry. He's still sixth ahead of Alex Ellis, who's done a great job actually to get this second group back on terms.
Yeah, I quite like the fact that he's been able to close and now just sitting behind, letting his tires cool off. Just going to set him up for another charge in the final couple of minutes, which we are very much diving our way into. Still 1.5 at the front, our reigning defending champ, Antoine Lacharite, looking very, very comfortable here at the Red Bull Ring. And I like that we're seeing as well that the temperature be a factor, right? It was warm in qualifying. Drivers had to think about that, adapt for it. Then by the time we go for the race, naturally, right, time has passed on. We move the time in the sim, and drivers get cooler conditions with which to work and gives us a bit more racing. Bergeron under fire from Ellis, moving through turn 1. Bergeron going to use the outside, the 1X off track to run himself a little bit wider. Suddenly Romagnolo's got a bit of an advantage, and Manalo's starting to play some bump drafting as well.
Bergeron's not going to be pleased about that because he's not getting any help here. He'll be on the outside for turn 3 as well, although they'll be left to fight it out between themselves. Bergeron's always going to struggle through there. He needs a good exit, and he's got one, to be fair. Fantastic run on the exit there for Bergeron, although he'll once again be hung out to dry slightly, and once again on the outside as well. Through this clockwise circuit, you never really want to be on the left of anyone, and he is right now. He'll be down to 7th place before you know it. I didn't think Ellis was going to do that because it sort of self-sabotages the group almost into not getting 5th place.
I don't think he was ever expecting to close, so now he's past Bergeron. We'll try and close on Romagnolo. One by one pick his way to the front. Only problem with that, really, let's be honest, then you're the one punching the hole in the air and suddenly feeding draft to those behind you. So I do feel as though there's a give and take, a bit of an equation to balance there, as a bit of dirt and grass and gravel being kicked up between some of the drivers. Look at these two, by the way, even in the battle for what is 15th position, minimum points effectively down in the championship. It's Rory Windrum and Spencer Reitzma that find themselves fighting for position, and love the paint schemes. Great to have the actual differentiation between them.
Yeah, it's there's going to be, oh dear, that was not good though from Reitzma. Got that all wrong into the final corner on this occasion. There's another look at VR. Oh, was that a bit motion as well there? As Reitzma's having real trouble here on the front straight.
Yeah, you're all right, by the way. It is definitely a motion ring. I think Reitzma has just got to slow down, and it's painful, right? If you don't serve it instantly, you just continue to bleed it. And in that VR rig, you can see a bit of a shrug of the shoulders, a waving of the head. He's clearly not thrilled, but you make a small mistake, sometimes you pay big prices for it. And it's Luke Ciccarone in the 74 machine. That's going to try and fight his way on forward for Porsche Centre downtown Toronto. And still side by side off the corner all as Dylan Cole runs behind them. Wonder if there's a bit of an inter-Toronto rivalry as well between Porsche Centre downtown and North Toronto. We'll keep an eye on that storyline in the back half of the season. Down the inside though, Ciccarone is going to get it done.
Yeah, it's the golden ticket almost, isn't it, down the inside at turn 4. Such a long way round there with the off-camber nature of that turn that you're going to always struggle. So It's a good way of getting through. Now, can Alex Ellis get himself back into a conversation for 5th place? I really don't think Romagnolo is quick enough to stay away from these guys, but there is only a couple of laps to go maybe here.
So, less than 3 minutes with these drivers coming across the line. The margin to the leader, 20-odd seconds. I don't really know if it's 2 or 3 laps, but I think it might still end up being closer to 3 laps left to run. Duking left and right. I think that's a bit of a defensive move from Alex Bergeron, as Manalo going to have to watch in the mirrors out of nowhere. Jonathan Houlet gets to his inside, makes the move happen, and going to make his way on forward to 8th. That came out of nowhere.
I think it came out of nowhere for him as well. I don't necessarily think he was going down the inside there on purpose, but sort of needed to avoid those in front. Decided, well, I'm down the inside now anyway, I might as well take 8th place, and he has, ahead of Manalo in 9th. So Christopher Cook couldn't take advantage and move forward further, but Ouellette has done some stealthy good work here to almost make overtakes without anyone noticing.
Now, where is your leader as he heads to the line? There is Antoine Lacharite. Now, lap time's around 1:32. He crosses the line with less than 1:32 to go. I'm going to say it's the final lap, but I don't feel confident in really saying that. It ultimately is not about the fight up front, though. 1.8 seconds splits those two drivers. It's more for these drivers behind to know whether they have to force the issue. Is it the final lap or not?
Yeah, it must be a horrible place to be when you don't actually know here. And even if you've got someone in your ear, they don't really know, because we don't. I don't know if they'll have any more intel on that or not, but that really does change your strategy. If this is the last lap, it's going to be all dives down the inside. It's all going to be going on. But if it's not, then you might see a more considered race or lap, on this penultimate one. But we don't know, so they don't either, and they've decided to go for the single file route. Maybe they've not been able to make moves. Maybe they're expecting one more.
Well, it all comes down to the pace of your leader, and he does have the ability to back it up slightly, Carrone being 2.3 back, if there is a desire for him to hold up the field very slightly here. But it's been a dominant performance, and dominant gets thrown around a lot, but in a field as strong as this, dominance is a 10th or 2 here and there every single lap. It was a couple of 10ths in qualifying, 3 tenths to be precise. And the reigning defending champion heads out of the final corner, works his way to the line, white flag in hand, 1 more lap to go.
Yeah, the second half of this race has been quicker than the first half, because they got 13 laps in a lot more time than they've done the most recent 13, if you see what I mean. They've been going a lot quicker. There's the rolling start to factor in, but nevertheless.
And, well, unfortunately, Ewan's technical issues have decided to rear their head right as we get to what should have been the most exciting of final laps. Not going to end up being a last lap showdown at the front. Romagnolo hoping that he's just going to hold on in terms of track limits to be able to fend off the challenges from behind. It will be one more time, heavy into the braking zone, deep under the brakes if someone wants to force the issue. No looks going to be made. Unfortunately, it's not their opportunity, their chance to make it happen. Back up front, though, it's still 2.8 seconds. Andrew Carrone, I think, might have actually burned through his tires a little bit too quickly. Look at Gregory Hoverson. He's managed to close that advantage to within 1.5 seconds, although it won't be enough as we get ready to see the final lap. Might not just have been on tires. Very, very, very possible that some of these drivers thought they wouldn't get 27 full laps of racing. One more look, though, at the defending champ. Antoine Lacharite has led from the drop of the green to the drop of the checkered. It will be a punch of the fist, surely, a sigh of relief. A race win once more in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. Andrew Carrone grabs second, and it's a good 3 seconds his margin up to the race leader. Such was the ability to extend come the end of the race. A bit of a wait for Romagnolo and company to come to the line. There comes the snake back and forth. We're not at Indianapolis, but we might as well be. ends up being no real change them amongst them all. Ellis, Bergeron, Ulay, Manalo, and Christopher Cook, the rest of your top 10. Still, of course, a second grouping to come to the line, and drivers seemingly hitting the incident limit on what is the final lap of the race. Down to pit lane, Luke Tuccarone and Rory Windrum. Oh, I have no idea what that's going to do for the results, but Ewan, that is what drama we sometimes have in races like this.
It is. It's tracks like this that produce this kind of thing and make it so that we sometimes have the drivers almost panicking towards the end and making sure that they're not going to hit that limit. It's unfortunate, but in the end, they've got themselves there in some ways, and it's something they've all known about at the start. They've got to keep an eye on. Some didn't so much as you would like.
And we'll take a look at the results and can't wait to have a chat with our race winner as well, although I guess in some ways, our poor pole sitters and race winners getting quite bored of talking to Lewis McLeod. He's no longer here today. They're going to get bored of talking to me soon as well. They'll make their way around for the cool-down lap, and then we'll take a look at the results. 3 seconds the margin between Porsche Lausanne and Porsche Centre Rive Sud, the two that fought in 2023's Porsche Esports Constructors Championship Canada, fighting once again here in 2024. And Gregory Hoverson was able to close for Porsche of Halifax. He also saw Ian Gagnon Renault close his advantage slightly. Interesting to see in the closing stages, drivers maybe will take some confidence from the speed they had. Romagnolo, Ellis, Bergeron, Ulay, Manalo, and Cook. The rest of your top 10 will make our way down to 11 to find Josiah Farrow in front of Blake Townend and Adrian Paluk. Alexandra Lacasse, Savio Panicia, and Spencer Reitzma make up the rest of the top 16. And then Richard Hibbs in 17th, plus 5 next to his name, alongside Jonathan Ulay, tied for the Lego Play Well Award, largest mover in today's race. Behind them, it was Dylan Cole, Valentin Crusoe, and Matt Murphy behind them as well. Luke Scavis, Luke Tuccarone, and Rory Windrum all scored on the leading lap, it would seem. Not sure exactly what's going to end up happening in terms of our results. Well, we will get the chance now to go and chat with our race winner, Antoine Lasharite, the defending champion, of course, in this GT3 Cup machine. And we've seen his speed on so many occasions across of so many cars as well. It's great to be able to now talk to him after a dominant race victory. And dominance, Antoine, doesn't often have to mean winning by 30, 40 seconds. Sometimes it just means never letting anyone else have a chance. How do you feel after a great win today?
Yeah, I feel great. Feel sweaty a bit, but these circumstances are always pretty tough because you don't want to make a mistake or you do a slowdown and you throw away the win, like last week for Andrew. But happy I didn't make these mistakes and end up with the win.
First half of the season is done. I think we calculated that the championship is down to 22 points. Of course, Andrew will lead. You'll be in second. 4 races to come. 4 different races, I think, in many ways, right? Circuit of the Americas, Spa, Road Atlanta, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Which of those tracks do you think will most strongly suit you? Because I think that's the race that we're going to be looking for this type of a performance once again.
Yeah, I think the last race at Gilles Villeneuve is going to be one of my good tracks, and the other one's going to be pretty much drafts. So I don't think that we're going to see that type of a gap. But I think the last 4 races of this season is going to be more suitable for my driving style, and I'm looking forward to it.
In terms as well of this championship, it does seem like it's you versus Andrew. How do you feel you guys are matched up? You're very, very close in terms of pace. I've had the privilege of commentating on you guys many a times before, but, championships are won on such fine margins.
Yeah, to be honest, it's going to be a great battle. Always good to drive against Andrew. He's a clean driver, so always fun. If I want to battle for the championship, definitely with Andrew. So, it's going to be pretty fun.
Congratulations, Antoine, on the race victory. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you.
And we'll make our way from Antoine Lasharite, the race winner today, to, second step on the podium, but still points leader, Andrew Carone. Andrew, how are you feeling right now? A bit of a wry smile on your face. What could you have done to try and close to Antoine?
I think today I've tried everything. I think Antoine has a lot of experience at this track. He's always been really fast. So I was very happy to, follow him, and only in practice and even in the race, I knew my pace was really good, but I don't think it was as good as Antoine at all. So I think he just was the driver of the day. He was just faster today.
I love how you say it, driver of the day. And we were just talking with him about, you two have raced in so many championships. We've seen your pace be very, very similar. But championships are won on very fine margins. It's 22 points between the two of you. You hold the championship lead, we calculated, we think. With 4 races done, 4 to go. How do you feel about your championship hopes? Can this be the year you have the crowd?
Well, with the first 2 races, I was enjoying it a lot. But I can see Antoine has picked it up a bit. Some errors in the first 2 races, but after that, the race 3 and 4, he got the pole in the race. So I think I need to work on myself to make sure I can actually do something about it, because I don't want to lose the lead of the championship for sure.
Well, Circuit of the Americas up next. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time, Andrew. Great to see a smile on your face, and congratulations on a great result in second.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being there, for everything that you guys do at Porsche, race spot, everything. Thanks. See you guys next time.
The Porsche Centre Reef Suit driver leaves us in the commentary booth. And, well, I guess something else that we didn't really get to touch on too much because we were so focused on telling other stories was Porsche Lausanne. 2 victories tonight, one in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge, one in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Canada. That championship league going to swing in their direction, and it really is just them and Porsche Centre Reef Suit, 2 heavyweights at the top of the championship.
They've been the dominant region so far, there's no doubt about that. It's been complete dominance from them, and it's going to be about those 2. We saw last year such a great fight and getting so close down towards the end. Really hope that we're going to see that again. It does seem, though, that Lausanne are having a bit of a better time this time in terms of extending a lead and just beginning to show themselves to be the stronger region. Whether that will retain towards the end, we'll wait and see, but hoping for a similar fight to what we had in 2023.
And we'll be back again, as mentioned, in 2 weeks' time. We get a week off, and a week off that I think the drivers will take to regroup, to reset, and to recharge for the second half of this Porsche Esports Canada campaign. 2 championships, twice the fun in many ways, and boy, have we had plenty of that so far. Join us April 18th here on Porsche's Twitch at 8 p.m. Eastern for all the action. For now, though, it's time to bid you farewell. On behalf of our team behind the scenes who make all of this possible, thank you for joining us here for another round of some great racing action. For Ewan O'Leary alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, we appreciate your company. We can't wait for you to join us from the Lone Star State in 2 weeks' time to roll on in Porsche Esports Canada action.